I'm sorry, I used the wrong term, colostomy.
Oh,
So the answer to your question is, you betcha. They put in a port, and she has to start chemotherapy. Tracy Hall, I don't know if you know her, she went to school with me on the...
you'll see her name, and she writes letters to the editor. Her married name is Lewis, Tracy Lewis.
Yeah.
Okay, we will open this meeting of January, I got it, of January 12th, 2012. Let the records show that Catherine is not present but is on her way. We have quite an interesting agenda tonight. Should be an interesting meeting.
Yep.
A couple of things that have happened in the last couple of days, and I will I can find my file here. The young man came in wanting to do a survey, and he's from the RTI company, has a badge, RTI International. It's a national study conducted for the United States Public Health Service. His name is Robert Smith, and he has a letter, and it says, "To whom it may concern." This letter certifies that Robert Smith is a representative for the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, sponsored by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA, Research Triangle Institute, a nationally recognized research organization with headquarters in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina, is under contract to the federal government to perform all data collection activities associated with the data survey, contract number, and this is a very long number. If you need additional assurance that Robert Smith is a legitimate RTI representative assigned to this government-sponsored study, please contact Lona Johnson, National Field Director, at an 800 number, or the National Study Director at a 240 number. And I asked him not to conduct the survey, because he was going to people's houses, until I knew exactly what the survey was about and how it was conducted and what was going on. So I made a couple of phone calls this morning. One was to the 800 number, and when I spoke with them, I spoke with the Shelley Parsons, who is the manager. Number one, it's a not-for-profit agency conducting surveys for the last 25 years for the government. This survey is to determine the need for services in our area for health and human services. Anyone has the right to decline to be interviewed. They are randomly chosen by a mathematical algorithm process. It's a two-step process. First step, it takes about 4 to 5 minutes. They will be asked a set of questions with a handheld device about smoking, drugs, and alcohol, and some mental health issues. The interviewer will have a handheld device asking the questions. He will input the answers, and according to the answers, the device will determine if they are eligible to go on to step 2, which is a full interview, a 1-hour process, with a laptop and headphones. They will be asked questions about smoking, alcohol, drugs, prescriptions, and mental health issues. They can decline to answer any or all of the questions. If they choose to do the full interview, at the end of the interview, they will receive $30 cash. Shelley was unable to give me streets that they targeted, but said that Carol Mickus, the field supervisor, would be able to do that and send out a package that we could have at Town Hall in case our residents had any questions as to what they were doing. And they gave us Carol's number. I then called Carol and She gave me the borders of areas in which they're targeting. Tilton is in this year's random of all of the states, and within the states, Tilton is randomly picked through this mathematical algorithm. And within that, there are certain parts of Tilton that's selected. So the parts of Tilton that is selected are borders of areas are west of 93, between 93 and School Street, and the east side of 93 along the river between Hunt Brook and Manville Road. They are randomly selected, again, by address, not names. They are selected by an algorithm by age and population. There's up to 2 people in the household that can be interviewed. So if there's 2 people in the house and 2 people want to say, yes, I'm okay with this interview, that's fine. The survey has a direct relationship to policy setting and allocating funds in certain areas. And there are 3 websites to check out. www.sam as in mother, H as in ham, S as in Sam, A as in apple.gov, or www.r as in Richard, T as in Tom, I.org, or www.n as in Nancy, S as in Sam, D as in dog, U as in under, H as in Harry, W, E, B as in web.rti.org. And that, the last website that I gave you, is the actual study information. So with the board's consensus, we will call them back and say, yes, it's okay for them to do this. It is completely and totally up to the person. They knock on the door. If they're home, they do 20 to 25 people within the town of Tilton. Once they get that 20 to 25 people, then they don't do it anymore. So it's up to them. They can say, no, thank you, I'm all set. I can refuse, I can do, they'll go on to someone else. This is the information. Here's a copy of his tag, his picture, which he'll be wearing, his business card.
With the homework you've done, that they are legitimate, I don't have a problem with it, as long as they're not knocking on my door.
Yeah. Kind of where I'm at. Well, if they knock on my door, I may answer their questions. We'll see.
If they knock on my door and ask for drugs and alcohol and particularly mental health issues, it would be a lot more than 1 hour interview. So let them be.
Well, thanks to the grace of God, I have moved on from that, but I have a history, and
I'm going to say I have lucky for now before I get 59.
go for 3. Go for
Excuse
3.
me, 90.
Oh, I get it.
Is that the consensus that
Works for me.
you want to call him and say it's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, the other issue that we have that's come up, that we have a few minutes that we can talk, and the chief is here, so the holding cell at the PD, did you get that squared away? The cost of did you ask Ryan about the,
He's going to research the smaller, less expensive one.
did in fact give them a higher one to,
Well, the one he gave, I think
This is why I want to be on that side.
the second one for him, the water bubble and the toilet was like a 1 unit.
so is the Taj Mahal of toilets? Okay.
If it's got no seat.
So the toilet that we thought was going to cost about $1,500 was stainless steel to avoid, all kinds of injury to self with fixtures and plumbing cost and everything else was going to be just a hair under $5,000. So we said, no, thank you. But the actual toilet itself was going to cost a hair under $3,000, which was double the cost of what we thought it would be, and we said no. So now he's given him the high-end one and not the bottom end.
Go back to the one I saw, the first one, and get a price on that, which was just to see.
All right, so he's going to give that information to Tom to get that back?
Yeah, I know everything's straight out. They were supposed to do the carpet in prosecutor's office first thing in the morning at 7:30, and the last thing they were supposed to do today was take it up, and I just got a text that it's glued down. So they're in panic mode up there. So I said, well, Matt's trying to help them get ready because the installers coming first thing in the morning. But
We had some of those scrapers that we used to get the tile up at the Grange.
that's what Matt said to use, like a scraper or something. So,
I think Tom took them back with him.
Chris just texted me, Chief, I can't get the carpet. I said, well, we'll try to get it going.
Let's ask him when he cut his fingernails last. All right, so that's being worked on. So that can't be finished. Okay. Oh, I don't want that on there. Did you take a look at that and figure out? And it's okay?
I think this particular one has to do with the property that's already in.
Already existing, okay.
Because it says 2010 construction, and they would only, what they want to put on that extra lot is 3. So this would pertain to the part that's already done.
We have a letter from Executive Counsel Ray Burton, and it's actually a report to the people of District 1. The Governor's Advisory Commission Intermodal Transportation, which is GASSET, submitted our recommendations for the 10-year transportation plans for air, rail, highway, and other public transportation to Governor Lynch on December 15th. The Governor will review it and submit his recommendations to the New Hampshire House and Senate by January 15th. 2012. It is now up to the New Hampshire House and Senate committees to come to conclusions by July 12th on what our roads, bridges, airport, rail systems, and public transportation will be for the next 10 years. So find your local state senator and representative by going to so-and-so. So we need to also add that on the list. Dennis is coming in, Representative Fields is coming in next week, as well as tonight, to talk about the changes, the bills that are proposed in the House, particularly to the criminal justice side. So, quietly. So he's coming next week because there are a lot of proposals in the bills that the chief and other chiefs have been in meetings over that will affect the towns and their budgets, like allowing firearms to be carried in schools and domestic violence situations where they are removing firearms. They no longer, the proposed bill says they no longer have to do that. And another bill is referring to video surveillance, that it's going to not be admissible in court, which would be, for instance, the K Jewelers would not be admissible in court under this new bill that's coming out. So that would affect.
What is the purpose?
What's the point then of having surveillance?
So that's why we want Representative Fields, who's on the committee that's making these bills go forward, come and explain why these bills are happening.
So if we catch somebody dead to rights on our video surveillance at Riverfront Park, destroying the park, you have nothing.
Right?
Under that bill, no.
Under that bill, correct.
I wonder why they lump things like carrying guns in school and video surveillance in one bill.
Well, it's not one bill. It's like
bills.
multiple
I see,
bills.
I see.
Right. When I first started out, it said multiple bills. And that's what's pretty scary.
Yes.
There's a lot of them coming up, a lot more than I've mentioned. So I thought we'd invite Representative Fields and Representative Tobin to be here next week to help explain some of these and what they mean to the town of Tilton.
And what their purpose could possibly be.
Right.
Catherine, this letter that we, was in the FYI file from Hodges Companies about rentals available, I assume that you gave Heather a copy of this? Okay. Okay. All right.
So we have a letter from the State of New Hampshire Department of Transportation for the proposed Dollar General store in reference to the site distance plan prepared by Appledore Engineering, dated December 1st, 2011. After reviewing the submitted application with the traffic generation parking data letter from Zaremba Corporation Group and the above reference plan, District 3 has the following comments. 1. Due to a left turn lane, through lane, and a right turn lane for the Hannaford driveway in the westbound direction, and no existing left turn lane for your proposed access, only right turn and movements can be allowed in your site from US 3, New Hampshire Route 11. 2, a full access driveway should be considered along the entrance roadway for Hannaford to allow for safer turning movements, accessing and egressing your site. Please consider these options and resubmit plans for our review. If you have any further questions or would like to have a meeting, feel free to contact this office anytime. Sincerely, Susan Susi. We have our Budget Committee public hearings. The first one is Wednesday, January 25th, 7 p.m., and the second public hearing is Wednesday, February 8th at 7 p.m. So, class on taming the local government computer, social media, electronic communications in New Hampshire Local Government Center. This is from Dan Crean. It's a course at February 7th, 9 to noon.
I signed up for that.
You did?
Yep.
But that would be good.
I figured it would go along with the ethics policy that Joyce and I are going to be working on. That it could be very informative and
February 7th. I can't do it. Suppose I could change. We have Hiltz Construction, the payment that everybody's been waiting for the scam body.
oh,
We have Full of Scrap newsletter.
I saw that.
did we ever get anything from Holden Engineering? Okay, this time?
No, not yet.
Okay.
So we have the 2011 session accomplishments from the New Hampshire House of Representatives.
Guess it depends on your attitude, whether your accomplishments are.
I know. It says this bill repeals mandatory insurance coverages for certified midwives, the cost of testing for bone marrow, continuation of group health in the event of divorce or obesity and morbid obesity, diagnosis, treatment of pervasive developmental disorder or autism in persons having deafness and hearing loss. Call that an accomplishment?
Well, I don't. Apparently they do.
And this is who we're meeting with tonight? Oh, that's yours. You got it. Catherine, to Pat, Joe, Norm, and Joe. Catherine, do we have the Cropsey file? Do we have the,
I believe I'll go downstairs, it's in Joyce's office.
on our desk?
I didn't bring the paperwork with me, but one of the rules that they're considering, one of the House bills that they're considering now, would be to expand 91A, which includes, if passed, that we would be required to open personnel files for anyone who asks to see them. That seems a bit
It
troubling.
seems contrary to those personnel's
Yes.
right to privacy.
Right, it does. I mean,
Just because you happen to work for a town, a municipality, or whatever, doesn't mean that your life can be thrown out into the public just because you work for them.
well, I feel the same way. I mean, as far as the emails that I have, they're welcome to sit down and read every email that's on my machine. That doesn't bother me, but You know, up till now, personnel records are just that, they're private. And hopefully it won't pass. But it's in the legislative bulletin, you know, how we get the bulletins. I think it's in legislative bulletin number 2. Talks about it, and it's encouraging everyone to call their representative and tell them not to vote for it. You know, not if it's going to, you know, expose personnel, private.
Sounds to me like the person or persons who proposed this bill would be the first ones to whine if it was their records that were being made public.
I would think so. But there's several of them right now that are being considered that I find very disturbing. You know,
You
it's...
gotta wonder where they get this stuff.
I know. It's like I'm all for reduced government and this and that. The bills that are out are just really...
Well, I totally understand the personnel record issue. If I'm paying the freight, I figure that I've got a right to find out the information, probably.
But that's private information. They have to put stuff in that, you know, when they fill out applications and stuff that is...
Well, those kind of issues, no. But I mean, as far as a person, what you've done, were you ever reprimanded or whatever?
Usually in the case of a public employee, that employee's right to privacy eclipses your right to know.
Right.
Yeah, but what should be private? That's my question. Work record? About hours they put in, that kind of stuff? I mean, I can
Their
understand.
resume, their job application, which
Yep.
has job history on
I
it,
can
which may
understand
not.
that.
Right.
What a particular position is paid is public information.
Right.
So if you want to know what so-and-so is getting paid, all you have to do is figure out what position they hold and get that information.
Right.
Hello, Catherine. Should have called me, I'd pick you up. You couldn't be here. Yeah, I was early.
That's the issue, you had no keys?
No, one truck wouldn't run, and the other truck didn't have keys. Everybody's here. We have a pen.
That was a couple hours ago. I know. I don't know it. I thought you wanted that. Oh, that's why I can't see.
3?
Yeah, we are.
Who would have thought I'd be early on a night like this?
I know. Well, you're welcome to stay, because we have a ton of House of Representatives joining us tonight on the topic of redistricting. So you're more than welcome.
U.S. or state?
State. Yep.
Sounds like that might be interesting, too.
That's it. It is, seems like it's going to be interesting. The chairman of the committee is going to be here tonight to talk to us about it. Anyway, we've asked, actually we didn't, what we would like to see happen is that some type of, I know when we first spoke with you and the owner of the store, that when we went over and saw that he had put up the flags so that nobody would park in the parking spaces, there were a couple of pyramid signs in between the pole and the store that said "park here," and then they had some sale items on there, and that was kind of blocking the passageway between the parking lot. And I think what's happened now is that signage has been moved, and people are actually coming into the parking lot. Instead of parking face into the building, they're actually parking and then scooting out onto Route 3, coming in between the pole and the store. So what we'd like to see happen is either those pyramid signs or plowing up against their snow, whatever, so that it gives the indication for people, until we get the ruling from the state, that cars are not going to go from the parking lot over the sidewalk onto Route 3, avoiding the light. That's kind of where we're at. Thanks.
Okay. So, my understanding, and I probably have to, you have a file there, I'd like to review the photographs. I do not think that those side sandwich board signs at all. I think they've been essentially where they were before. You have the photographic evidence from what it appears.
Well, this is before the parking lot was paved, so I don't have them with the flags after the parking lot was paved. So I don't have anything after that. But the point is that if you're coming out of the parking lot and it's actually doing exactly the same as if you were pulling into the parking spaces in front of the store. You're entering and you're exiting onto Route 3 across from the sidewalk. And when you're coming from the parking lot and you're going in between the pole and the store, you're essentially doing the same thing, only this time you have flags, you have the corner of the building, and then you have flags that are there now, and you have children walking down the sidewalk. You're not visibly seeing those children coming down, and they're scooting across that sidewalk and onto the highway. And people aren't expecting, when they're taking a left-hand turn from Park Street, a left-hand turn onto Main Street, that somebody's going to scoot that way out of the parking space. So there lies a problem.
So what is your issue?
I think what we would like to see happen is something temporarily until we get the ruling from the state, to just whatever it is, whether it's sandwich boards, whether it's even piling the snow there, so that when they come into the parking, go into the store, come out, that they exit onto the Prospect Street and come out instead of scooting over the sidewalk onto the main road. That's what we're asking.
They're doing that as a way of avoiding the light.
Okay. I don't know that that's a violation of traffic law. I think it actually is a violation of traffic law. Because if somebody's cutting through the parking lot to avoid the light, I see Chief Cormier is nodding, that would be a ticketable offense as an operator. So, I think what we need to analyze is what it is that you're proposing, and besides that, we need to take a look at what the problem is. We need to define the issue, the problem, as succinctly as we can. And I still don't understand what your issue is with the parking lot. I think I would like to have that drawn up on a map, because my understanding is that at this point in time, you're abrogating the agreement that we had when we all met on site. That's my understanding. So I think I would like to see a plan of what you're proposing, so that I may be able to comment about that.
I don't really think they were abrogating the agreement. I think first of all, the parking lot wasn't paved. And when we were there the sandwich board was there. And there was 2 sandwich boards when we were standing there. So we didn't really give that credence to people thinking that they would go into the parking lot and then skip over through that small space over the sidewalk onto Main Street. But now they're doing that. And so I think it warrants readdressing that and asking you if you could put a temporary barrier there, some type of temporary barrier that's not going to, that is conducive to whatever looks good at your store. The flags look great there, it promotes the business, so it's not like, I don't think the board is looking for some huge permanent barrier. We're looking for something temporary, even if it's one of those small little cement things or
Well, a couple of Jersey barriers, that might be good. Is that what you're proposing?
No.
we're asking you, we're not proposing anything, we're asking you to help us out in the situation. That's what we're asking, Jim. That's...
I still don't understand what your issue is. If people are skipping the light by driving through the parking lot, then that is a ticketable offense. It's not our issue as property owners to enforce traffic law.
Well,
let me say this. As part of the DOT, what I have in front of me is the DOT rules and regulations pertaining to policy relating to driveways and access to the state highway system. Let me read you this under right-of-way restrictions. Access to the state highway from parcel other than a permitted driveway shall be prohibited by appropriate barrier islands, including natural landscaping. Parking, loading, vending, or servicing of vehicles shall not take place on the state highway or in the right-of-way. And I'm just letting you know that exists in here. I found it the other day. Our issue is we've been made aware of a safety issue. I observed it Monday, and Sandy, I think you saw one coming out of there, didn't you? And I don't know if they're intentionally avoiding the light, but definitely they're not coming out onto Prospect Street. They're coming out between the pole and the flags and accessing Route 311.
Okay.
So we're just trying to make you aware of this safety issue. It's not going to affect the town of Tilton if somebody gets in an accident there on your property. It's not going to affect us at all. It's between you and the state. We were just hoping to make you aware of it, letting you know it exists, and that you would take some action to prevent it.
So,
If you don't, it's really between you and the state of New Hampshire and the Tilton Police Department.
so as I understand it, this is a safety issue. And you are saying that we have abrogated the agreement, not you.
No, we
No.
didn't say that.
We're not saying that.
You're absolutely right. Legally, they shouldn't be turning out of there. However, it's convenient for them because they can. I saw a guy try to make a left-hand turn out of there, which is absolutely ignorant on his part. It was a guy. But if he couldn't pull out of there, and he almost got in an accident, but be that as it may, if he does pull out of there and strike somebody or get struck or whatever, then the ball's back in your court because it's sort of like an attractive nuisance. They can, so they do. You know what I mean? Making a right-hand turn out of there, I don't think that's a safety issue necessarily, but the fact that they can leads some people to think that they can do whatever they want to do.
It's a safety
not
issue
you.
where it's crossing over the, it is a safety issue when it's crossing over the sidewalk, when children are coming down the hill and you're crossing over the sidewalk. But be that as it may, if you're, I mean, it is a violation, according to the chief, if they come out through there. In order for us not to have somebody there ticketing everybody that goes, you know, to the store and comes out of the store and gets ticketed, then people don't want to go to the store. We don't want that to happen. That's not our intent. What our intent is purely a safety factor. All we want is for the safety of the children and safety of the pedestrians that are walking along that sidewalk there. And I think that that can be easily avoided if there's something that is put up so that they don't assume that that's a right-of-way onto Route 3. And that's all we're asking. If that's not easily obtainable by you, Jim, then the chief can go ahead and do what he needs to do. No, it's not, we're asking. We're not telling, we're asking.
All right. I have other things that I could respond to Catherine Dawson and her citing of the law, if you will, but what I'd rather do is, since you've mentioned that it's a safety issue, I have had an opportunity to update today, as a matter of fact, the accident compilation report that I got from the state. And I have copies for each of you that I will, if I may, read the cover and have you proceed. What I would like to do is do that, if I may, is read the cover into the record. On November 16th, 2011, I provided the town with a compilation of accidents in excess of $1,000 of property value using the Bureau of Transportation Planning Statistics as the data source. This compilation indicated that 307 West Main Street had a number of accidents, but was certainly not as unsafe as, for example, 258 West Main Street. In the subscript, I noted that the database at the Tilton police offices might contain more reports. Today, I had the opportunity to review all the reports at the Tilton police offices with Lieutenant Martin. These reports show that no accidents occurred at 307 West Main Street in the years under review, 2008 through 2012. Moreover, the incidents in the state reports citing 307 West Main Street actually were completely and solely encompassed by accidents at the intersection of Prospect, Park, and West Main Streets, the traffic lights. This was done by comparing reports from 305, which is the ATM machine, 307, which is the subject property, and the addresses from 305 through 307, which represents the intersection. The state data had erroneously listed 307 West Main Street as the source of some accidents. Thus far in 2012, there have been 2 accidents on that stretch of road. The latest one on 11 January was opposite LaChance's store, not 307. The earlier one on 6 January was in the intersection. It may have appeared to passerby that 307 may have been involved, since the damaged vehicle pulled into the parking lot at 307. But the accident report states unequivocally that the vehicle causing the accident ran through a red light. My request is that you continue this action until such time that you have had a chance to review the police data. According to the police data, no vehicular or pedestrian accidents occurred, and this site poses no present safety issue. This indicates that the barriers are superfluous and should be removed as soon as possible. Thank you.
There's no barriers down there, though.
Pardon?
There's no barriers there.
The flag.
Flags and the semaphores, which the town codes enforcement officer graciously allowed us the store to put up, and I think Shabuda without a permit fee.
Right.
Thank you for that. But I'd like you to review this report and consult with the police department and come to a decision at a future date.
Well, I didn't think we were making a decision at all. We were strictly having a conversation with you, asking if you would consider something. We didn't say you had to do it. We were asking you to consider it. So I don't see to where there's anything that we're putting off a decision for. We can read this, but it wasn't our intent to tell you what you had to do, but only to talk to you about what we perceived from the reports and things we'd seen that were an issue. So,
I think I'm misunderstanding something. I think we were ordered to put the flags and other barriers up to the parking
that was
area.
part of the whole thing to encourage that was our original meeting, and the flags and things were his idea. He came up with that, and it has also worked to bring people's attention to the fact that there's a new store there. And it also, because of where he's put those flags, it encourages people to park in the parking lot beside instead of stopping right in front of the store. So, I mean, I personally think it's worked very well. He seems to be doing a very good business, and for that I'm very happy for him. It is not our intent to do anything that is going to hurt his chances of having great profits. That isn't not our plan at all. And so he put those flags up, and it worked beautifully. For the most part, people aren't parking in the front. They're using the parking lot on the side, which I believe was your original intent, or the owner at the time, their original intent was having that little parking lot beside the store for people to park and come into the establishment.
If I may address the historical issue,
Okay,
those were two separate lots,
right,
28 and 29.
right.
And no parking at one point in time was allowed on 29, only on 307, which
And-
is lot 28.
Why was parking not allowed?
They didn't own the lot.
Okay, so they didn't own the lot, but eventually it
Parking
was
occurred-
bought.
The parking occurred in the front of the premises and has since 1926. That's the history behind the site. That is private property. And there have been up to 3 or more parking spaces.
But it's been used for several years as a parking lot for whatever business was in that building.
For 70 years.
Yes,
Yes, for
So-
70 years. The 3 spaces in front have been used as parking.
no, I'm talking about the parking lot beside the building, the other lot.
The other lot, for the last couple of years, it was used as well as the property in front of the premises.
Well, I know when Wallingford's was there, they used it too.
They owned both parcels at
Right,
that time.
and they used it as a parking lot.
And we also allow Dr. Neesham to use our parking area,
Right,
and also LaChance's.
okay?
We don't have any preclusion on our parking.
No, and we're not,
We have not posted it.
I mean, I think you came here with the wrong idea tonight. We're not telling you what you have to do. We've only brought this situation to your attention in the hopes that between yourself and the store owner, that something could be done just to get people to come out of the parking lot and use the light. That was the only intent for this. We're not telling you you have to do anything. We're not telling you that we're going to change the rules of the game. That's not anything that we've done tonight. We're only bringing this safety issue, what we perceive as a safety issue, to your attention. And I think it's wonderful you've gotten the data, and I think it's extraordinary that we have such an accident-free area. But a couple of the cars that have come out of there, I don't know who they are, but they really like going fast. I know that is not your fault, and that is not your store owner's fault, but if there is a child that is just freeing the front of that building when this happens, there will be an accident. And, you know, that child could get hurt. And all we're asking is, if nothing else, pile your snow there. That way you're not doing anything permanent. People will get used to the fact that they're going in the side.
Well, I will confer that with my tenant.
Okay.
And the plowing contractor.
That's all we're asking.
Meantime, I would like you to review the data and with the police department, and if the three spaces that we have and maintained in front of the building for 70 years plus, if there's no safety issue, we should be allowed to use our private property again, because those are arguably three of the most valuable parking spaces in town, and they are privately owned.
Well, we're waiting to hear from the DOT, just like you are.
We keep calling them. It's like, why they haven't responded, I don't know, but we keep calling them to get them to do that, to resolve this, one way or the other, and it'll be over.
I had it resolved in 2006.
Well, what can I
But
tell you?
they would only respond verbally, and Dennis Allen was there. I think it was the prior police chief. I've forgotten his name. Chase, I think. Chapman, sorry.
Well, it was Charlie Chase, then Ken Chapman.
Yeah,
Oh,
but in
maybe it was
2006, it would have been Chapman.
Maybe in Chapman.
I'd like to get it resolved for everybody's benefit. This is becoming a long, drawn-out affair, and I hopefully it'll be done tomorrow, but I can't get the state to go any faster than they go.
And ultimately, they're the ones that have to make the resolution to it.
We're also starting to plow, and one of the issues may become whether or not those flags can stay where they are, considering what might have to be plowed around, or in the instance where one of the state plows or someone else decides to take them out. And that starts to become an expense and hardship for myself and my tenants.
Yeah.
So I hope you appreciate that if there is a point in time with the snow load that they are removed, that we aren't considered in some form of violation and fined.
No, we didn't say they had to stay there, and I thought, it was my understanding from what the gentleman said, that he put them into where he can pull the whole thing out of the ground and take it inside if he wants.
The bases are
The bases are cemented in the ground. It's the bases, the
On your
top,
property, certainly,
the flags
they're
can come
cemented,
off.
so getting them up is not going to be
flag pots can come
task.
out.
The bases stick up above the ground?
Yeah, about this much.
Yeah, but that's a shame to have to cut those things off. They've only been there 60 days.
But anyway, we do
All right.
appreciate you coming in.
Thank you. And I'll
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Okay. Nope. Still there, yeah. Okay, thank you all for coming. Is Representative Mirsky here? No? Okay. He's said he confirmed, said he was coming, so. Representative Mirsky.
Yeah, he said he was coming.
He said he was.
I think what happened is when I talked to Joyce last week, she said we could meet at 5:30.
Right.
And when the letter came out, it came out at 6:30. So I don't know if Mercy knows that's what the time is or what.
Yeah, the letter said 6:30.
We spent yesterday calling everybody on the list. telling them it was 5:30. Yeah, yes,
Yeah,
you
we
did.
called everybody. We called everybody. For those that are waiting, there's some coffee up here if you'd like some coffee. Couple of cookies.
Refreshments.
We'll give a couple minutes till he comes on.
Give them 5 minutes.
We don't have anybody from the committee at all. Do we? I don't think it's going to make it from there.
So are we on hiatus? Apparently.
Unofficially. So it begins. Direct deposit thing? Limiting direct deposits, the number of them? That's not going to be met well.
Did you see this?
Oh, no. That's a nice picture of you. That's a very nice picture of you. No, this is sitting on my table. That's very sad.
You're telling me?
You did. The,
Because we've been
Oh.
fortunate, no one's ever gotten hit there. We're supposed to let everything go.
Yeah, I know, it's like, how about preventive?
we do have a representative that's here
Hi, how are you?
for his name.
I understand you're coming to talk to us.
We can, if he doesn't show up in another 5 or 10 minutes, we can get started and get the consensus of those members, board members that are here and how they feel about it.
The only statistics that we have, Hamilton and Tilton,
Yeah.
the minus the pluses.
Right.
And that, and I don't even know if this whole thing will get passed.
Yeah,
Be 3,
There's like 4 or 5 different plans.
right.
4, my tractor.
Oh,
Yeah. GMC pickup, Yukon, Ford pickup, and tractor.
coming,
4.
we talked to him on the phone. But he's,
Thank you. I don't know.
We had timing with that, and yeah, it's sad, but... You want a Kit Kat? You can have a Kit
what?
Kat.
Help yourself.
Okay, just take one.
Yeah, I know, it's like chips,
Kind of like
isn't it?
potato chips, right? There's coffee, cookies, I don't know which.
Hard to hear about that.
Well, it is what it is. Taking it one day at a time. The prognosis is good, so
You paid.
I'm happy for it.
Yep.
sure you're gonna cause trouble, huh? Yeah, you're not a chair lady.
Is this going to be a dialogue conversation?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, just to kind of let them know what we're really
Just
looking for.
shut the camera off.
Yeah, I was just going to ask
Want
that.
our own representative. We have enough people now to have our own representative. And that although Samerton's a wonderful place, we don't really have that much in common with them. Our needs are different. So we,
Yeah, she'd love to show it to you. Yeah, she's got a sailboat out there.
Okay, we're going to get started. Okay, folks, we're going to get started. Maybe. I'm hoping at any time that Representative Mirsky is going to show up. He did confirm with us today, along with a few other representatives, so maybe with the bad weather, they're a little bit late. The point of the meeting tonight was that Board of Selectmen in the town of Tilton was made aware of the redistricting, well, a little bit ago. We tried to talk with our representatives and try to put our word in, but, you know, things happen so quickly down at the House of Representatives. It was on December 8th or 9th, they made changes to the deviation, and then on December 13th, they posted it to the public and only gave a 24-hour viewing for the public. So December 14th, it was no longer available to us. So there's 2 plans currently. After December 13th, the committee voted not to accept any more plans. There are 2 plans right now before. One is the one that they're going with, is called the Leadership Plan, or the Mirsky Plan. Some people you talk to say it's the Leadership Mirsky Plan, which is, there are 152 towns eligible to have their own representation under the United States Constitution 2006 amendment that was voted by 70%. And out of those 152 towns, 59 of them are being denied the right to have their own representation, Tilton being one of them. We have a resolution to petition Representative Mirsky, the state, to allow afford Tilton its own representation. Under the Constitution, it says any town that has the population per the census of over 3,291 shall have its own representation. And shall, under the law, means must. We have that right, and that's what we want, is our own representation. Samberton, which we share our representatives with, is down a few people, so very close, but not quite. It would make perfect sense to us to have one in Samberton and one in Tilton. So I guess that's kind of where we're coming from. Want to add to that?
No, we have some members of the general court here, and I would personally like to hear their opinions of these plans, and if they do have any, how they feel about this situation.
Go ahead.
I'm Representative Robert Greenmore, and I'm from the Meredith, New Hampshire. The issue for you is having the Meredith in trouble. We have less than, I think we're like 100 people shy of, or 200 people shy of being able to have 2 reps, but we have 6,000 people, 6,200 people in our town, and under the population growth, we need something like 30, 34, so it's 32 would bring us to 64. We're at 62, so we're a couple hundred people down from having 2 reps. They're tying us with Guilford and our reps and Guilford reps. And Guilford has 1,000 people, so more than reps, to have their own 2 reps. I've argued this with the committee. I've talked to Paul Murphy. I've talked to people on the committee, and I got nowhere. I mean, they're specifying that they cannot go over a 5% deviation. Just to give you an idea of what we're running up against. Wolfboro has a population of about 6,280 something people. We have a population of 6,230 people. So there's about a, they're not even, there's 29 people difference or something, I think, the way I added it up, between Wolfboro and Meredith. Wolfboro is a district and Meredith is not. Okay. Some more facts about what they're doing with the deviation. Barnstead and Alton used to be together. Now they're making Barnstead and Alton their own districts with the issue that you have, the same issue. And they're putting a 3rd district in there, so they have a float route between Barnstead and Alton. So they have 3 districts between 2 towns. And they're taking 2 towns, like us, Meredith and Guilford, who should both have 2 reps, and they're making us a 1 district. Okay? And they're doing the same thing in Tilton. They're doing the same thing. You know, and when we were at a meeting, I said, geez, I didn't think about Belmont County had any representation on there. And one of the reps got up and said, well, what am I, chopped liver? Apparently, no, because, you know, they didn't use the chopped liver. That's not no health there, you know. So we're in the same boat, and I was here tonight because I thought Paul Murphy was I would love to hear his arguments against this, and I'd love to be able to give him mine again, because he said to me personally that, well, I tried, and he's like, you know, I tried. I'm sorry. So, I understand your issue. Supposedly there's a meeting with the Laconia reps, because they're upset. They should have 5 reps, they only have 4. They have 15,000 people. Figure that out. So they're getting, and they take a, you know, Laconia runs as a wide open, they don't run elections on the board, they run open candidates to the city, for the city, which is what they do. But now they're taking one of those boards out of Laconia and giving it to Belmont. So you can see the stuff that they're doing. It's, to me, the argument was always that they would have, we should really vote for this because, you know, that's the way it should be. And I said, I'm not voting for it. I don't care. I will not vote for this plan. It's a bad plan. They didn't spend any time doing it, and, well, actually, they spent a lot of time doing it, but they never come up with anything until the last minute, and now they're trying to shove it down our throat, and I'm not going to take it.
Right.
Good.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, I just like, I think you understand, I'm from Guilford, I'm a landlord, and I live in Guilford, and we've been bandied around the last couple of times. We had 2 reps way back. And then the next redistricting, we got hooked up between Alton, Barnstead, Belmont, and Guilford, and had 7 reps. So and it worked fine in terms of distribution for 1 term. And then suddenly it just slipped away. And Guilford barely has 1 rep now. I mean, I ran the last minute, so we did not have anyone from the town government. But going forward to this whole process, it's really for them, for the committee, and whatever advice they're getting, it's all about the math. It's all about the deviation and the 5%, which means they're looking at the range of the deviations. What would be, they take the whole population of Belknap County and divide it by the number of towns, well, I guess the whole population of the state, and divide it and then come up with this 3291, which is the perfect number. So that's the perfect, and anything that deviates from that perfect number of 3291 is what constitutes the deviation. So, so for instance, between Guilford and Belmont, Guilford and Merritt, I'm sorry, we're supposed to be contiguous, and we're contiguous by the lake. So we connect with the lake, which is, you know, I'm probably that's legal, I don't know, but anyway. Guilford is a little over, the percentage deviation is 8% over. Meredith is 5% under. But when you put the two of us together, the deviation is only 1.5. So, I mean, this is the math game that you know, but when really, if we're being reasonable, and that's what all the federal court decisions say, that the reasonable deviation, you have to look at all the circumstances. You're talking about the Constitution. The New Hampshire Constitution, which was amended after the last redistricting, to include this shall have representation. And so that there is an opinion of the redistricting committee that the one man, one vote deviation, and however they interpret that, with 5% is trumps our Constitution. But I really question that issue. And then the question is, do they mean the range between the lowest deviation and the highest deviation? Or could it be an average in that? And if you're looking at the average, it's going to be a lot lower. So I have real concerns, and Laconia has a real concern because taking Ward 4 out and putting it with Gilmanton and Belmont, and with 4 reps, but they've got like 2,500 people in Ward 4. Belmont has 7,800. So that is really, in my mind, that I can justify to the committee on this, is disenfranchising the people in Ward 4 in Laconia. And I don't, they've done this in several cities, is just take a ward out to make the math work. And I just don't think it's right. But I've testified, I've written letters, and they just say it's all about the math, and they have to get dismissed out of the camp. So I understand your concern, and I really appreciate your interest in putting forth your opinion. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Elida. You know, we sent a letter down, and that was falling on deaf ears, that's for sure. But what I don't understand is the last couple of days putting all of this together and being on the phone with a lot of the representatives on the committee, off the committee. There's, yesterday and certainly today, I was here at the office since 9:30, and for everyone that was for it, I got 4 no's. And if there's that many no's out there for it, then why is it moving forward? And that was my question to most of them. If there's that many no's, why is it still moving forward? I mean, you have people that they're doing that kind of, they're doing the same thing to Manchester and Litchfield. They're doing the same thing to Stratford and their counties. If there's 59 towns out there, the 59 towns should be getting together. We all should be going down there, and we all should be talking to them at once. And then maybe we would be heard.
The reason it's moving forward is the committee voted, and the majority of the committee voted this plan, the leadership plan, watch that. And so that will be, representative from Barnstead who's on the committee, Bill Nathan, did not vote. And I think there was another person representative who did not vote. But they voted, I mean, it was a majority, a clear majority. That's how it operates. So the issue comes is there enough will in the House? Are there enough problems that the whole House will not And that's all it's worth, just to go any further, we pass it, and that's what it is.
And you're voting on it the 18th.
I think, well, is it the 18th, is that what they know? I haven't been told.
That's what I'm hearing, so I don't know that for sure.
Well,
There's been a thing about when we're gonna do it. I don't really know, but I think it has to be out for the January 30th, it has to be out or something. February something. I don't remember the date, but I don't believe it's something about the 18th, but I don't know. The Allison said, okay, it's gonna hurt out. Sometimes, yeah. I don't receive the calendar until tomorrow or Saturday morning. As soon as I get it, I'll phone you. But in the meantime, I don't like to plan either. Since the last meeting that I had with you, and looking at it, and like I said, I wasn't on the committee to start with. I came in that night, and we were trying to have something that I didn't know enough about. I don't like the deviation any better than you, but on the same token, we represent Sampson and Tilton. And, I don't have a problem who has their own rep and who doesn't, honestly. I know that Sampson doesn't have the numbers. We're about 300, I think, short for our deviation. And when they did it with, they tried to do it with Hampton and New Hampton or something, the deviation was too much. So then Tilton was the only one that it worked with. That's why we ended up after you. And, wherever we represent, we'll just do our best. I don't like to plan any better than you for the rest because the phone is getting, the same problems that the lighters. So, by the way, lighters on Elm Shield, they can do And, I felt bad the night that I came, and I didn't have this information for you because we got it that same day when I got to the house of my other committee. And because we're all on different committees, sometimes we have to catch up, and that's the way it works. And I'm glad that you brought it up. I'm glad we can get this meeting. I just hope that will show up, but I don't know. I feel like we're out in the field again because he's a guy that was on the committee, and these people, he said he had a representative here, and I don't see him yet, any of them. And I'm very concerned with that. But we did at least get some of our delegation here, and at least as a plus, at least get an idea of where all at. And I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate all coming in. That's the only thing.
Well, I think it's a plus if they're not going to vote on it on the 18th, because that's what our understanding was they were going to vote on it on the 18th, but if...
Mercy told you that, I don't know. I don't know what they final, I haven't got the calendar. We get the calendar, or we make it on a computer tomorrow, and if I do, I don't know if we have to get it. Anything, I don't. As soon as I know, I'll let you know.
Well, we may have time to still get together with other entities. I mean, I don't want to...
Well, it's also been sent in the House, maybe none of the plans will go through. The thing is, if we do pass the plan, we've already been told that it will be challenged, and that's okay by the court, not particularly you, but in the House with other members, that they want to challenge it. And the only thing is, when we go to the court, you know how that goes. Anything can happen, because if the court decide what they're going to be, it may not be what we even want then either. So I don't know what to tell you. I guess if you want to try to have another meeting, I suppose we could.
I think it's too bad that towns are going to lose out, 59 communities, because the committee members are worried about percentages. Representation is far more than just numbers. The Constitution allows those 59 communities their own representation, and that's what it's all about. Not the deviations, not the percentages, just representation. And it's not that, I mean, Tilton isn't saying that we don't have good representation. We do. I mean, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the amount of representation. Tilton's needs are...
This Representative Murphy, we started because we weren't sure if there was going to be a 5:30, but we're 6:30.
6:30, right?
5:30.
Madam Chair.
The date of, the time is 6:30.
Oh,
Yeah, what's on the letter?
it's a misunderstanding.
This is Representative Murphy.
Right.
I think our delegation here would yield to him for any of your questions now that hopefully they'll make more sense than this here, or maybe still not making sense to you at all, I don't know. Thank you. I am on time, right? Yeah. well,
You're fine.
Yes
You're
and no,
fine.
you're
You
good.
are fine. You're good. You're good.
Yeah, well, we started off 10 minutes ago, so it's okay. But we weren't sure if you were going to So,
This is the manager, we gotta find a way to get around when the snow is.
it's up to you, man, Chair. Sometimes nurses go to the hot chair.
Right.
Might be easier for me if I just stood up, yes, no?
What?
Whatever makes you
Deborah.
It makes you comfy.
Here. All right, well, so, why don't you begin, and then I will fill in, I will proceed. You just want me to make a presentation on redistricting, basically.
Well, we can tell you that we're not happy with the current plan.
Guess that from the letter. I was thinking I was up in Lancaster, one of our public hearings. A woman came up to me and she said, someone must really hate you to appoint you to this position. I want to give you just some background on myself so you can get a perspective and understand where we are. I was a representative in 2000. In fact, it was my third term in 2000 when, for a whole series of misadventures, the court wound up getting a hold of the redistricting process and redistricting the state. At that time, I represented just the town of Enfield. I was very happy. I could tell people I could be parochial. It was this great thing to represent your own town. And I'd done that for at that point, 5.5 years. My first 3 elections cost me $6.75 to run for office, $2 for a filing fee, 25 cents to send a letter to the editor to tell people I was running. Never put up a sign. Great to run in your own town. I really liked that, and I thought it was terrific. At that time, we had 195 representative districts. Some were single-town districts like mine. But Enfield also shared a flotilla with one of the wards in Lebanon. And we had a representative, Nancy Skolner, who served in that capacity. So we were a town about 4,500. We're one of the towns that hasn't changed in population. So anyway, to make a long story short, when the court redistricted, they put my town, Enfield, in with 6 other towns, into a 7-town district, which included the 5 Mascoma towns, plus Hanover and Lyme. Someone said, how do you think you're going to do it? I said, on a good day, if I lose by 500, it'll be a good day. Because the district became 21,000 people. And while I was active in my school district, it was actually my school district, which was the Mascoma Valley, I had no real interest or really ability to represent Hanover and Lyme. That's a college community, it's the other side of Moose Mountain. And this may seem like a little long, but it's important for me to go through this so you understand when we finally get down to the nub of your problem, you can appreciate, you see that I'm very appreciative of your concerns. Well, anyway, 21,000 people. And I remember standing at an event in Lyme where a couple were receiving an award from the town of Lyme for many years of service. And I thought, now here's a couple who had contributed a lot of time to the fire department, all these different activities in the town. I said, and they are living in a 21,000 person district. These are people who probably could run for the House if they were in a smaller community because they were known. But in this 21,000 seat district, how do you do that? And the only reason I was able to do it was because I was very active in the House, and I had a lot of people who hoped to see me get me reelected. The cost of that election went from, I said, $2.25, essentially was what I was paying for my election, to my share of $14,000. Right. $2,000 essentially was my share of it. And if it hadn't been for people who wanted to contribute to signs and campaigns, all that junk that goes along with big districts. I mean, it would be absurd, and it was an absurdity. So, I lost. And the first thing I did was I asked Representative Gary Hopper in Ware to file a bill to amend the New Hampshire Constitution to restore small-town government. And that 2 years, in the following 2 years, that did not happen. Instead, what the House did was it redistricted itself and broke up some big districts, including mine. And they took Hanover and Lyme away, and they left me with the 5 Mascoma towns, which is our school district, which was convenient. And I'm not saying it was a bad thing in some ways, but I was no longer representing the town of Enfield. And so I did get reelected in 2004, and Representative Hopper's seatmate from Ware had refiled that same Constitution amendment to restore small-town representation. And of course, I signed on to that work, and I was involved in the writing of the Constitution, met many times with the attorneys and the Secretary of State and all of that stuff. And in the fall, I became one of the most active person in getting signs up and pitched out. So there's very few that I think as anybody else, probably not even the original sponsor, Representative Kirk, who was more interested in getting the 2006 amendment implemented. Now, once it was passed, then I and the current Speaker of the House, Bill O'Brien, we formed, with some other people, we had formed a little outfit called the Natural Legal Rights Foundation. And the very first suit we initiated was a suit to sue to implement the 2006 amendment in 2008. And we took it to court. And I redistricted the state twice in 2007 so that we would have a set of plans we could take to the court and we could show how this would be implemented. And what we did was we used the process that was done previously, that when you balance out the towns, for example, you guys are, I think, like 344 people, more than you really need for your own rep, something like that. But what happens is, in virtually every town, we qualify generally have more representatives, more population than you need. And you got to find a place to put those folks. And so in the old days, what you do is you aggregate all those loose votes until you get to the size, kind of a fourth dimensional district you'd call a flotilla that floats over the towns. And you do a little calculation to make sure you're within the right deviation. And you went from collection of towns, collection of towns, collection of towns. So after those two redistrictings, I discovered, using the aggregate method, 85% of the people in New Hampshire would have their rep living in their state, in their town, or their ward. It was going to be great. And so the next four, I was out of the House after 2006 and I was reelected last fall. Bill O'Brien became Speaker. He appointed me to the district committee. I said, this is terrific. We're going to be done in June. This will be easy. We'll be done in June. This is a straightforward process. We've already done it twice. We know how to do it. We've done in June all over. Towns are going to have their own reps. And then, could have been me. I don't remember, but we had a lot of meetings. At some point you say, well, let's get a legal opinion on how to proceed with this process so that when we get sued, we will have a defensible plan on the table. Because the simple fact of the matter is, when you follow the news, I don't care where in the country you are, these plans get sued. Because they're always reduced to a kind of a political contest. And the difficulty with that, of course, is, either party, I'm not picking on Democrats because we happen to be in power as Republicans this time, but it happens the other way around. If you have Democrats in power, the Republicans will sue because the parties want that, if they can get them, they want the extra number of reps, whether it's 2, 3, 5, 6, whatever it is, because there are close votes in the House and in the Senate. And they want to make sure that if there's any possibility of getting gain advantage, they'll do it. So we know we're going to get sued from the outset. We ask for legal help. And then downhill from there. Because
What we discovered after 6 months of legal wrangling. I'm kind of getting ahead, I'm getting slightly ahead, I guess I can say this. After 6 months of legal wrangling, we discovered we could not apply the aggregate method of balancing towns, these excess population. Secondly, we discovered that after 50 years of case law, the range of deviations that used to be permissible, as much as 16% in some cases. I know that Representative Millen had brought a letter and submitted a letter to us at the Visiting Committee pointing out that there was a case, Brown v. Thompson, which they decided, where the court decided in favor of the plaintiff, with a deviation of 89%. There's a county in Wyoming, in the far northeast corner, where the Customs outfit is, which has 2,600 people, give or take, 2,650 people. And they have their own, I think, senator. And so someone had sued over that, because it was clearly out of whack in relation to all the other counties. But the deviation wasn't the issue in the suit. So when the Supreme Court awarded to the state, in the opinion, Senator O'Connor, by the way, I'm a layman, I'm not an attorney. Senator O'Connor said, don't ever use this case as an argument for extreme deviation. That's not what it was about. Don't ever do it. And so in writing in that response, what she precipitated was a challenge to that 89% deviation. I think it came in about the next cycle, and they threw that out. If you follow down through case law, you find over time the court has reduced the ability to accommodate these deviations between communities to what is now considered, the number 10%. 10% statewide, 9%, the highest deviation you could have in any district would be 9% over the norm, which in your case would be close to, maybe 280 people, or maybe 1%. But the problem is when you deal with the whole state, you got to keep it within 5% plus or minus within the counties, just to make it work, because you have 400 reps, you have to balance the number across the entire state. So we found from case law, we could not go to the range of deviations that we anticipated back when the 2006 amendment was proposed. Now, mind you, the Secretary of State, I would say even to this day, will almost refuse, pretty much, I'm not sure, I think in his heart he's still refusing to believe that we can't do more in the way of deviation, and secondly, that we can't use the aggregate method. But the case law says, you follow it all the way through, we have to use something called a component method in terms of calculating deviation, which is more complicated, which requires a lot more closer assessment of the differences between the ideal population and what the population of a town is. The long and short of it is this: can't use aggregate, must use component, can't use can't use aggregate, can't use must use component, and we have to stay within 10%. Well, okay. Now, just break right there for a second. If you also look at case law, what we discovered is that beginning with Reynolds Sims in '64, we learned that the court does not care about political boundaries when it comes to voting. We learned another thing, is that the federal Constitution trumps the state Constitution all the way on voting issues. We'd like to think it's a 10th Amendment issue. It is not. Apparently, all the case law, whether Democrat attorneys or Republican attorneys, they agree on these points. The federal Constitution requirements under a one man, one vote, the 14th Amendment, takes precedence over everything. And in the ideal circumstance, this was proposed by Senator Burling, I think in 2002, and I thought he was totally out of his mind. He said, what we've got to do in New Hampshire is we started up in Pittsburgh, we started drawing districts that have, at that time, you would qualify if you had 3,089 people. We started drawing districts of 3,089 people, and you keep moving all the way down the state until you have 400 districts all the way to Portsmouth and to Hinsdale. I thought to myself, my God, that's nuts. But if you read the case law, Absent political boundaries, that's exactly what you do. Now, there's an inherent problem with that, and you're going to get to run into some interesting issues. The minute you allow any subjectivity into a redistricting scheme, you offer the opportunity for gerrymandering. Because I can make a 3,200 district as thin as a wafer if I can pick up, a particular group, let's say the votes for my party. I can make it look like a piece of popcorn. I can do whatever I needed to do to try to collect as many votes as possible to advantage my party. The great thing about the 2006 amendment, I thought, was it took almost all the politics out of it. It's a mathematical formula. You get 3,291 people this time around, you should have a rep. If you get twice that, you get 2 reps. If you have 3 times that, you get 3 reps. Hard to avoid. And then, because we're also required to keep the district as small as possible, you just can't, the ability to manipulate this thing politically is very, very small. In fact, you really get no choice. You sometimes get alternatives. You can pick this, maybe you can pick this, you can pick that, but that's really around the edges. So, I was just amazed when Senator Burley proposed that, because I instantly could see the opportunity to just ignore all sorts of constituencies. I later learned, and I finally, sometime within the last couple of months, I could not believe it, but I was admitting to myself that in fact is what happens if you follow the federal case law to the max. Now the only relief we get from this is that prior to the 14th Amendment, there were a lot of towns. I mean, obviously, we've been around for 300 years, 400 years now. Anyway, so the town government here has been here a long time, and in Reynolds Sims, they recognize some political boundaries to some degree, but not to the degree that we would like to have them recognize. So, what the lawyers, after going through all this stuff, but what the lawyers said, and I will tell you, the attorneys on both sides, so the Democrats or Republicans, agreed with us, that we have to follow, that the federal Constitution takes precedence. We have to make certain that we fall within prima facie constitutional boundaries. It takes precedence over the New Hampshire Constitution, and then what happens is, once you've met the federal criteria on deviation, then you try to apply as much of the New Hampshire Constitution as you possibly can. And it's produced a plan that is a great disappointment to me, because I want the plan that I had sort of devised back in 2007, which had all these communities. On the other hand, and after finally getting over that enormous disappointment, and you work with us for a while, I finally stepped back and you kind of get your own preconceptions, kind of try to get them aside. We have actually, what the value of the 2006 amendment, this is not satisfying your question exactly, but the value of the 2006 amendment is, what it has done is has driven the redistricting process back as close as we can get to creating small districts as possible. And I mentioned earlier that in 2000 we had 195 districts. When the court redistricted, it created 95. When the House redistricted in 2002, it added a few, breaking up these large districts. We got to 103. The current plan that's on the table has 200 districts. It's more, 5 more than were existed in the year 2000. So we've virtually doubled it. And I will tell you that we're going to have a vote coming up this week, but we're still taking suggestions from individuals in the House or wherever we can get them. If we're able to tweak something, we will amend the plan and we will see if we can make it better. There's some other issues in this particular county having to do with Laconia. Laconia is really unhappy with the plan because I think it's Route 4 is kind of in with Belmont. I want to make a point about, make an interesting observation about that, which you'll be surprised perhaps, because I was surprised. U.S. case law, as I said, does not care about political boundaries. And secondly, what the New Hampshire Constitution says is that towns or wards shall be treated as towns. So what happens is that in order to try to get the smallest possible representational districts, the consequence of that is that really city boundaries sort of disappear in a way. Now, politically, it's turned out to be untenable. I mean, Laconia, of course, is all their furor about Ward 4 being in with Belmont. But that particular arrangement is a result of of laying out these towns mathematically in Belmont County to try to make them work within the parameters. And that, if you were thinking politically, you probably wouldn't have ever proposed that. But you get into the mathematics of this, into the Sudoku puzzle kind of aspect of this, and sometimes you're looking like this and you don't see the political implications. So that particular anomaly, we think we might have a solution to it. But there are little places, 2 or 3, that I think we're down to maybe 4 or 5 places statewide, where we think we can modify the plan. So, federal criteria, state constitution, mathematical formula, 200 districts. We're better off than we were in 2000, but we have not solved your problem. Now, what happens, if you read the Constitution Amendment, there's a provision in there for, we're sort of like orphan towns. We have a case in Merrimack County where the town of Dunbar sits way down the bottom of that county. And the towns around it all deserve their own rep. Bow and Hopkinton are pretty good-sized communities. But Dunbarton's only got maybe 2,500 people. And so we have a provision in the Constitution that says, we have 2 provisions which are applicable, and they also apply here. This is, what it says is that an individual town cannot be part of a flotarial district. Remember I said you have underlying districts, and then you also have a situation where you collect all this loose population and put it into a flotarial district that floats over these communities. That was devised in 1971 by the state in order to try to preserve small town government. And flotarials are constitutional. Anyway, Dunbarton's down there at the bottom of Merrimack County. It cannot have its own rep because of the population. Bow and Hopkinton both deserve their own district because they have the requisite population. We cannot give, we're not going to be able to give either Hopkinton or Bow its own district because we have to put Dunbarton someplace. And so the decision in Merrimack County is to put Dunbarton with Bow. Bow does not have its own district. And the same situation as Tilton is with San Bruno. Because we have to find a place for Dunbarton. And we have to also make these districts contiguous. So I can't take Dunbarton and stick it with Webster, a couple of towns to the north. I got to stick it to something next door. So in Bow's case, Bow does not have its own district, although it's a very wealthy town. It has the right to, I think, maybe 3 reps, maybe. It doesn't have its own district because Dunbarton's got to be blended with it. So that's a 2-town district. Now here, so that's a particular case. Secondly, there's another consideration in the process, and it's really the conceptual objective. And once you get towns that should have their own district, then what we're sort of obligated to do is take the small towns and put them together in as small districts as we can create. 3 towns, whatever it takes. And then we're not supposed to continue going and create large districts. As soon as you create a small district, you create it. What happens in Belknap County, this is a difficult county. There are 3 real corkers, Sullivan County, Carroll County, and this one. What makes Belknap really difficult is it's a small county geographically with a 50,000 or so population. And most of the towns in the county, as I'm thinking about this, deserve their own rep, with the exception, I think, of Center Harbor and New Hampton and Stamford. I think that's what it is. Anyway, what happens when you look at Belknap County, you can put New Hampton with Center Harbor. Right, exactly. So tiny. Right, we put, I don't know how many you've seen this one. You know, I've got it right here. I'm sure it is. It doesn't even make it 30. You go to the website, and you got this. This is Belknap County, right? The yellow is New Hampton and Center Harbor. Tilton, of course, is right over here. One of the big problems is Samverton. Samverton does not deserve a rep. It's too small. I can get my glasses off. And if you put New Hampton and Center Harbor together, you got a district that's not even 1% out of deviation. It's an extremely good marriage. But then when you look at Samverton, 2966 doesn't qualify. You got to find a place to put Samverton. Meredith deserves almost 2 reps, not quite. Guilford deserves 2 reps and then some. So both those towns ought to be getting their own rep. Belmont deserves a rep, Belmont deserves a couple plus, and Barnstead deserves 1.5 or something. But here we have Samverton doesn't deserve a rep, and we have Tilton that deserves a rep. So when you back into the criteria, I got to find a place for Samverton. I can't hook Samverton to New Hampton to that district because the deviation goes totally wacko. You can't do it. I can't hook it. I can't really connect it with Laconia. There's a huge geographic problem with that. Although we have a similar geographic problem between Meredith and Guilford, there's water between those two communities.
And there would be water between Samverton and Laconia?
Huh?
There would be water between
right.
Samverton
It's
and
like
Laconia.
Winnisquam, right? I grew up on Winnisquam. So, Tilton, unfortunately, gets, here's the other thing. Tilton's population is slightly too large. There's a fellow in our committee named Spec Bowers who's very good with this process. And he just gave me a couple of brief notes. He said Tilton's population is slightly too large to be in a district by itself because you have more. You would be by yourself. Plus, you'd have to be in a flotarial. I can't put you by yourself and then somehow leave this excess population. Forget about it. I got to put. If I could give you your own rep, it would be Tilton plus some other town in a flotarial. You'd get your own rep, and you would also be voting for a flotarial rep. Now, hang on. So, to get that fixed, in this particular county, because it's small geographically, he said you'd have to have, what did he say? He said due to its size, Tilton would have to be in a flotarial roughly 10 times its own population, which is around 37,000 people, if you could solve it, in order to accommodate the deviation between the number of the 3,291 in your actual population. I got to find a place for those. So I have to create a flotarial somehow that's almost 10 times bigger than that. And there's no place to do it. So, you're in a situation, like a number of towns around the state, it's extremely aggravating because you deserve your own rep. You should have your own rep. But because the math...
It's not a question of deserving our own rep. It's a question of our rights to our own rep, not deserve our own rep.
Well,
it's a question that we have our right to our rep.
Under the New Hampshire Constitution, it's
Correct.
We shall do this.
And that means must.
Right. Well, unfortunately, we must do this, but we must first accommodate the federal Constitution. And its criteria having to do with calculating deviation and meeting the one-man vote criteria. So the shall gets blown out of the water because it has to follow the federal guidelines. You would like to believe it's a 10th Amendment thing, that we could do this and tell the federal government to go take a hike. It just does not work like that in voting rights issues.
But you're disenfranchising communities, people, just to make percentages work, to make the numbers work.
Disadvantaging political subdivision. And if you read Reynolds, no.
You are disenfranchising the people that you represent. Our needs in the town of Tilton and Guilford's needs and Meredith's needs are unique to their communities.
They are.
Our needs are very unique to Samverton's and our surrounding communities. That's what you're disenfranchising, to make percentages and numbers work.
What you have to do is a very difficult thing to accept.
Why your plan as opposed to America's Vote plan?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay. What America's Vote plan says is, what it does is it weights voting. There are two major problems with that proposal. First thing it says, is it say in the case of districts, particularly multi-town districts, that instead of having a whole vote, you might have a vote that's, when we calculate the votes at election time, the vote would be worth 0.23% of the total. If a person voted the next time because of their particular population bias, would be worth perhaps 0.36. A person from a third town in that district would be worth maybe 0.4. And the problem is, when you take the weighted voting proposal they put together, and you look at the potential outcomes in elections, what we have is the prospect, because it's not a whole vote anymore, it's a weighted vote, depending on who turns out. In other words, if you have a high turnout in a town, in one town, a low turnout in another, you could have the winner, and in fact it's likely, that you'll have winners of many contests who will win the popular vote, but will lose the election once the formula is applied. That's the downside of weighted voting. You will not be able to sort out who, in any multi-member district, is a winner until after the election, after the Secretary of State does the calculation. And the second amazing thing about this is, when they create flotarials, they have enormous flotarials. They have flotarials in their proposal that are bigger than Senate districts. Bigger than Senate districts. In other words, House districts. You're going to run, and for a House district that's bigger than a Senate by as much as 1.5 times. In their first proposal, not the one that's currently on the table now, their first proposal, they had a Senate district that was well over 90,000 people. Include a whole raft of towns, the entire city of Nashua was just enormous. And in the present plan, I know they have, I was looking at it this afternoon, I didn't put down here with those numbers stuck in my head, but you need to look at it. They are big, big, big districts. So, here's what makes it so impractical. Remember at the outset I said it cost me $6.75 to run in 3 races for my own town? And it cost $2,000 my share of $14,000 in a 7-member, 21,000 person district. You do the math, you start multiplying that. And what you now have is a prospect of running in districts which are just completely out of bounds for any normal person. It's just beyond the pale. It's bad enough in our plan that we have to create some large geographic districts in order to be able to get small town districts. But their plan makes, their plan is just completely, it's an absurdity. Because of the size of the population that are put in their flotarials. We're convinced that there's no way this plan can be constitutional for those 2 reasons. One, weighted voting is not used anywhere in the United States for legislative, in any legislature anywhere. There are, in upstate New York, if you Google weighted voting, you'll find some cases, I think, in county government, where they tried to adopt it in one place, and they have it in another, and in one place that they try to adopt, they're trying to get out of it, because it has not worked for them. But the real problem is just what I said, is when you take a number, when you use weighted voting, people's votes no longer account for 1, they're only a fraction. And you will have elections where the popular vote winner will not win once you factor in that. So your vote will be worth more than your vote. That's the problem with weighted voting. So here we are. We're back to ground zero. Why doesn't something happen? It's going around. I got to find a place for San Bernardino. If I have to find a place where the excess number is over about 3291, which is the ideal population for this town. I got to find a place for that. The alternative is either a flotarial, which is 10 times bigger, which I can't accommodate in a county of 50,000 people, or it's the present arrangement. The present arrangement, really in a way sort of keeping an arrangement around for a while, is that you're on a 2-seat district with a town that's a similar size, a little bit small. The alternative would be to have your own vote and then be in this enormous flotilla, which you never have. The other towns in the flotilla probably are likely to dominate who would be elected in the flotilla. So that's where we wind up in Belknap County. We have some other problems I mentioned in Belknap County where American Guilford are difficult for us. We're trying to find a solution for that one. We got some ideas whether or not we can get through some of these suggestions with a clear understanding and confidence. Or promote a constitutional proposal by Thursday, I don't know. But we will make amendments. We will propose some amendments next week where we've been able to make some fixes. But this doesn't have to be one of them. I wish it were otherwise. By the way, I represent, right now I represent 5 towns: Enfield, Canyon, Grafton, Orange, and Dorchester. In my district, Canaan's supposed to have its own district. Enfield gets its own, plus a little bit. It's in a float. Canaan, the town immediately to the north, is supposed to have its own representative. I can't find any way to do it. Can't do it because the map prevents it. It's just, and you have to go back to the federal criteria and look at it. Now, and anybody here who wants to give it a shot, you can go to our webpage. You can get the redistricting tool that's been created to accommodate these criteria, first starting with the federal criteria, the deviation after everything else, and you can try to work this out for yourself. And you will find that you just can't make it happen. So emotionally, I'm sort of in your corner. I mean, I think I felt from the beginning the towns in New Hampshire, which created the state of New Hampshire in 1784, ought to be able to be represented as they had been up until the court took the process over in 2002. But it's not to be. I'll just tell you a small anecdote, a small story. And I appreciate just to express how important this has been to me. If you talk to Bill Gardner about town representation, he'll tell you a story. But back about in the early 1760s, as the French and Indian War was drawing to a close, New Hampshire was suddenly going to become inhabitable because the previous 140 years you couldn't live up here. Because this was an area where the Indians were moving through a lot, the French and English were in contest, and folks in this territory were regularly being captured and taken to Montreal and ransomed. So as part of the state, I grew up in Dublin. I lived in a house that was built by the son of one of the proprietors of Gilmanton. My folks lived in the house. We still own the building. And so this is part of the world you couldn't live here. Well, as the war came to a close and looked like it was peace, Benny Wentworth discovered you could start selling, get involved with a huge real estate venture and make crafty in town. Not only could he make money, but the towns and the investors want to make sure that they had a voice in Concord. So at that time, the Privy Council, if you elected a representative to the Colonial Assembly, the governor could veto that. And the towns petitioned the Privy Council and the King to be relieved of that, to take that right away from the governor. And the governor signed on because it was financial interest to do it. The King came back 3 years later in 1767 and said, you can't do it. And people were so aggravated. So I'm convinced it was the reason why New Hampshire was the first state, the first colony to revolt and form its own constitution because it was so concerned about small town government. So I'm completely in your corner on the principle, but I have not, and nobody has been able to make this work the way we would like to have it in 2006. So I've spoken a long time. I'm happy to answer questions. I think I covered all the points. It's the good thing is we're better off than we were in 2002. In terms of 2000, rather, in terms of the number of houses. We might even look at the 2006 with some of these amendments. 206, which would be more than doubling what we presently have. But we're not where we really want to go, ideally, in the event that I help to write. So that's where we're at. So I'm here to take whatever kind of abuse you want to heap on me. I'm giving you, that's the straight story.
What's the accurate number? I heard 59 is the accurate number. Out of 152 towns, 59 are being denied the right to its own representation that accurately currently...
I have to go to the website, I can tell you offhand. That number I can't say exactly. I have to go to the website to see. I didn't actually do the count, but I'm sure it's there. I'm sure it's there. Now, and it's the way it shakes out. You can't leave any people unrepresented You have to stay within the deviation limits. You have to use a complicated way of calculating deviation, and it's just extremely difficult. Sullivan County is a county not where all the population's in the middle, and small towns in the top and bottom. Try to create districts there, it's a nightmare. This county's a nightmare because you have only 3 towns that don't deserve their own press. And only a couple of towns are getting their own press. I think Barnstead, in fact, Barnstead right now is the only one. And all in the present plan. So, the big thing is that we've been able to reduce these ridiculously large districts incorporated. I said, in November, sometime in November, when I argued just like you have until the second week in November. This approach. I argued every day, just like you're arguing. But finally, I realized I can't get around the federal criteria. And at that point, I said to somebody, the fix, but it's going to take 10 years to fix this. And I say 10 years because the principal thing that has to be adjudicated in my mind is the deviation of the federal court case law has imposed. If you look at it, what we discovered was all the cases that are in court generally involve big populations. So 5% of 500,000 people is 25,000 people. You can do a lot with 25,000 people, in terms of moving the populations around. And the case, I think, which kind of drove us into a box was the case having to do with the boroughs of New York and some governmental agency that had individuals being voted to serve on it. So, big populations. What happens in New Hampshire is, we're not talking about 25,000 people, we're talking about 165 people in a town. You're 165 up, 165 down, that's all. And so what you discover is that the parameters that the federal courts have described work fine until you get down around 8,000 or 9,000, and then it goes to hell. We can't. What has to happen, I think, is a litigation that allows, where the court says, we will accept deviations in 16, 17, 18, maybe 20% range. In other words, inversely proportional to the population. So the smaller you get, the greater deviation. And that's the kind of case that has to be taken to court. If we're going to be able to solve and be able to get as much out of the 2006 amendment as we can. That's the first thing. The second thing might be to find another way of voting. But right now, weighted voting has some enormous problems associated with it. And we did not embrace it for the reasons I mentioned earlier, that people aren't whole votes, they're only percentages. A person who's winning the popular vote could lose once you apply the math. And so we're nowhere with that idea right now. I think over the next 10 years, maybe we can find some way around both of those issues, but we're not there right now.
Go ahead, from Meredith. Go ahead.
Yes.
Can you explain the flotarial districts again? Because
Sure. For example,
what confuses me is you've got Barnstead and Alton as their own districts, and then you have a flotarial district for Barnstead and Alton. Right. Those numbers are not out of the deviation from the flotarial district from, say, Barnstead and Tilton with their own representative in Tilton. So
Alton has 52 articles, 50 people. Right? So you got to find a place for around 2,000 people somewhere. Got to account for somewhere, right? Barnstead has 4,593, so we got to find a place for 1,200 there. So what happens is you give Alton the route, you give Barnstead the route, and then you add the loose population of Barnstead and the loose population of Alton, provided that it falls within the deviation, 5% up or down. You can create a flotilla over those two towns that picks up that 300 votes or so, whatever it is. Right, the difference, the two in Alton and the 1,500 in Barnstead, give or take.
So the district of, say, the town of Samerton, which has almost enough for 3,000, and and Tilton has just a little bit over, a couple hundred over, doesn't that give them a floterial and their own rep?
The problem is that one.
So Tilton could have one, and Samberton could have one.
Sanford cannot have one ever.
They don't have
We could share
population.
it to...
Well, you say ever.
Because until they get to 3,291.
Right.
If they have 3,291, they can have their own rep.
But I'm from Tilton. Tilton has 276 extra people. Sanford is 325 shy. So that only makes a difference of 49 people.
So you make it perfect. Choose district.
Right. But if Tilton got their own for their share, and then there was one floating between the other two.
Because you can't put a small town that's not, you can't put any town that's not already a part of an underlying district into a floterial. That's a constitutional requirement. In other words, I could put, if I could put Sampson with another town to create a small district, two towns, maybe,
Like New Hampton.
let's say, look at New Hampton, right? Let's say I could, I have New Hampton, Center Harbor as a two-town district. Because that is a discrete district, all by itself, identifiable district. I can float those two towns with some other town, because they are discrete. That's in the second, third line of the Constitution. But I can't. Salmon is not by itself. We have to find a place for it. It has to either go with some other towns to become part of its own discrete district. Or you got to stick it with somebody. And the only place you can stick it, quite frankly, is in Tilton. Yes.
Are you
Oh, you should put it that way.
Well, I know that's the wrong way to put it. I mean, it is.
The fact is, sir,
I high
that,
school riding around, I love Salmon.
the fact is that it's all well and good, except for Tilton has no representative, per se. Our representatives are here tonight, they're both from Samberton. So Tilton, in reality, has no specific representative for us. And therein lies our issue. Oh, yeah. But that could happen anywhere.
Yeah, it could happen anymore, actually.
And that goes against the grain somewhat from that one man, one vote thing, I think.
Yeah, the poster child is actually the problem you're talking about, a town called Litchfield.
I was in Merrimack when we did that one, and all the Merrimack reps took Litchfield.
Right. Litchfield had two, he's absolutely right, Dennis is absolutely right. Back then, Litchfield had two seats. One of the seats, a guy named Warren Gene, is one of my best friends, he's now retired from the House. They, of course, stuck Merrimack and Litchfield together, there was a river between them. And 40-mile drive, I guess, like this, right? I mean, you can see the other town, you have to drive 40 miles to get there.
Yeah.
And Litchfield lost its reps completely because Merrimack overwhelmed them. Then there are other cases where now Litchfield is in a district with Hudson, and Litchfield actually has more reps, one more than they would normally deserve because the way the votes went, similar to what you're talking about, votes are reps. I agree that that's a problem, but there's no real way around it, short of you putting up candidates you're going to go town. I appreciate the problem, but, and I agree with you that you would like to have your own. No argument, I want to have your own problem. None whatsoever. I'm just telling you why things shake out the way they shake. I guess you have Europe and then you yes.
Now, when you look back at Samberton and Tilton, it's 49 voters shy of having two reps, is what it is. And so...
You would well with deviation.
So we get two reps and they're both floating.
Well, no, but you are a discrete district. Samberton and Tilton are a district. You could take these two towns. Let's say you had some, okay, here's one example. Let's say you had some excess. Let's try this. Let's say the population, instead of being perfect for two, was perfect for 2.5. And New Hampton and Center Harbor were perfect for 1.5. I think in that case, you could float a representative over Salmon, Tilton, New Hampton, and Center Harbor, because that's a specific district, that's a specific district.
Right.
Right, so you could do that. Just as we have done in all, except those are two discrete. It's a nightmare. You got a question?
If Tilton had its own representative, there would be 279 left over.
Could be something like that. I think that was something.
And if that 279 were technically given to Sanderson, then Sanderson would still be shot 49.
Well, within deviation.
Well within the deviation.
But I can't give them to Sanderson.
Why?
Because they're in Tilton.
Why?
Because they're in Tilton. I
You're giving away
can't.
Laconia.
Huh?
You're giving away Laconia.
In that case,
Constitution allows them to treat a ward like a town.
What you could do, although I think it would be crazy, you could try to create some wards. In which case, you could theoretically have Sanford steal a Tilton ward and work that way, but I don't think that's what you want.
Well, I think that's what part of the problem is to begin with. When they wrote the Constitution, I'm sure that they did not have these mathematical equations, nor did they have all of this case law to work around, and nor did they have to create things to make things happen. The simplicity of the Constitution clearly states, if you have this many, you should have this.
Right. At that time, as I said, I did this state twice, in 2007, using the aggregate method and the way that we had been redistricting over the years. And as I said, I was able to create a map where 85% of people had their representative in their own town or ward, and that meant that the rest of them, the other 50%, were in floterios, basically.
I think that you ought to sit down and redo that plan so that 59 towns are not denied their right under the Constitution.
You can get the right as long as you meet the federal criteria, which is no dispute with any lawyer anywhere. That's the
I don't wish to dispute with any lawyer. I knew that from a youngin'. Don't dispute with any lawyer. I'm not disputing with any lawyer. What I'm saying, under the right of the Constitution, we should have our own representative.
What has to happen, as I said to you earlier, is that we have to keep working on this and find a way to allow the range of deviation to be expanded to satisfy the needs of small towns. I don't think in this day and age you could easily create 400 representative districts in New Hampshire because the deviation formula is so prejudicial to small communities. It is death on small districts. So we need to find some way to fix it, and hence to be redundant. That's why I said when I concluded in November is that I think it's like a 10-year project. I think once we get past this step, which we get like forever including year 2000, once we get beyond that, I think individuals like myself and others who are interested in trying to get where you want to go is to find some way to affect this federal umbrella, this federal case law that doesn't work, that does prejudicial towards us. And for the reason that it's been all big districts. If we had taken a case to the court, anytime in the last 20 years with 400 reps, I bet money on having deviations in the range of 20% for small towns. Because you can't achieve the objectives of our own Constitution, even the underlying Constitution, without those kinds of deviations.
I can't imagine the other towns, the other 58 of the towns that are being denied that same right, wouldn't come and back you up if you went on a federal level to try to get things changed, so that we could all have, under our right, have our own representation.
There's a great, on the webpage, there's a great piece by Greg Sorg, who's an attorney from the East lives in a little tiny town of Trent people or something.
The last name again?
Greg Sorg, S-O-R-G. He's an attorney from up there, he's a constitutional expert. And he just talks to the original decisions having to do with one man, one vote, and why it's so wrongly decided, given the historical interests of Well, basically, they denies the entire basis for growth and development of our own state. As I said, if you just applied the federal, you'd have no representational district in town of Enfield that related to any subdivision, school district, or anything in the range. That's how misguided.
Well-
And in Reynolds Sims, the 64 case, like that, because right in right in there, Logan doesn't show up on a block. There's the parts of the landscape. So we have this tension. We know what we want. We've got centuries of having small town government. We had towns that created the government state, and the federal government is now, I mean, the application portion of it, not just a bad idea that everyone should have a vote, but the application side of the courts is just counter to that. I think Representative Fields said I had a question, now I'll come back.
I didn't agree with Mr. Kendall versus
I believe at one point in time that your committee was considering as a whole Center Harbor, New Hampton, and Sandton. That would have given a population of 6,227 and a deviation of a negative 1.4%. Now, apparently, that never worked out, and if not, why not?
Because you still have to find a place for the excess to Tilton. The excess over the 5% in Tilton, you have to find room, find a place. So I have to put Tilton somewhere. In other words, you've got what? We said 200. I had the numbers down.
279 is the excess.
So I have to find a place for that. If I could just do Hampton, Center Harbor, and Sandton, that'd be fine, but I still have to find a place now for that excess.
What is the deviation of 279? Is it within the deviation which is allowed?
The overage in Tilton, going up to anyone, I think is 8.2.
According to figures that I have seen, the over deviation is about 5%.
8.4, actually.
Okay, something like that. So I gotta find a place for them. I gotta find a place for those 3.4, put that 3 foot, we gotta put them somewhere.
8.39.
Whatever it is, I gotta find a place to put them. And the minute I go to Cameron, that means I gotta connect the two towns. Or if I go to Selma, I gotta connect the two towns in some fashion. It's really difficult.
My understanding in some of the decisions of the case law is that the word reasonable is missing. And I think that is, and especially in these smaller town districts, maybe the definition of reasonable is a little different than it is in big cities.
I agree with you, but here's the deal. Here's the problem from the house's perspective. As I said at the outset, district plans are almost always sued. If someone will sue over this, usually it's for political advantage. That's a fact of life. Which is why we went through this whole legal appraisal all these months. The lawyers tell us that our plans, prima facie constitutional, if we stay within 10% range, by about 5%.
The conversation needs to tell somebody to
That's the difference. But it's prima facie constitution. The challenge has to prove why the plan is not. When we go to 10.1% deviation, we have to now prove why the plan is constitutional. The way that the courts will look at that, it's a totally different deal. Anyone who does not like this plan has got to show why it doesn't work under the Constitution. And we're fairly convinced that we're sound. If we did what you said, and we said, well, reasonable is we say, why not go to 5.1, 5.2? If we could do 5.1, 5.2, if I could do 6 in Grafton County, I could give 2 of the focus instead of sticking with some other towns. Right. There are plenty of towns, if I go 5.1, I say plenty, there are a number of towns. If I go 5.1, 5.2, I could probably accommodate. I could probably, if we didn't have the problem, right, maybe Tilton, I still have a problem with Hampton, so I mean, that's a different thing. But I'm just saying, we cannot make a proposal that's not prima facie constitutional. We cannot do that. Because now we have to be proactive in terms of being able to explain every single component of the plan as constitutional. The only way we can defend what we're doing is to stay within the plan of justice.
How can 5.1 and 5.2 affect the overall 10% and create that big an issue for 10% deviation? I mean, you have it spread over so many towns. Unless every town that's in there has a greater deviation than 1 or 2%.
Well, we have 10 counties, right? We have to, one of the things we agreed at the outset, although I shouldn't say we agreed at the outset, we actually looked across the county lines to try to make things like this work. Find some way maybe we could maybe give Tilton its own rep and float it with Franklin or Ward, something like that, right? Huh? Well, I mean, there's all kinds of things like that, right? But the problem with going across county lines, which is a perfect example right here, is that now the delegations don't work out. When you elect your rep, you elect your county delegate. And I tried to get folks to think about reforming county government by creating a whole different, you would vote for county delegates separate from representatives. That would allow us to cross county lines. And we'd get rid of that problem. But I tell you what, when you start with that idea, there are a lot of vested interests in county government. And I got all kinds of heat out of Hillsborough County where there's some people who really like county government. That's where all the votes are at. Right? There's lots of reps in Hillsborough, and lots of reps in Rockingham, and they love county government. That didn't last very long. That didn't get very far. And what we did find out also, though, when you cross the line to try to do it, it actually doesn't help us a lot. It's the bloody imposition of this case law that's killing us. That is what's killing us. And coming back, we cannot stray beyond the range for, quite frankly, for defensive reasons. I'm not a defensive person. I like to be on the offense all the time. Anybody, you guys ought to be on the offense. You're working for your constituents. That's why you would write me that letter. You ought to be on the offense in the interest of your constituents. And I believe every representative ought to be in the offense in the interest of their constituents all the time. And it's very personally annoying to have to put together a proposal that, I have this digestive thing causing me to blow my nose, that they put together this proposal which is fundamentally defensive in nature. There were a number of us that we thought, well, we ought to just do what you said, say the hell with the feds, put out a plan. Well, maybe you're not saying it, but maybe
I'll say it.
I'll say it.
Right. Put on the table the right plan. And then what happens is, they take us to court, blow us out of the water.
Maybe.
We're going to court doing this all over again.
And then you can fight it and maybe get those percentages.
Maybe.
Because we're losing our representation because we're not using the word reasonable.
Here's what happened. This happened in 2002.
Do you feel like you're going in
circles? Everybody lost in 2002 when the court did it. The biggest district, I think, the court created was like 44,000. What's that, 1100 or something?
We're talking federal or state?
State Supreme Court. We moved this whole thing out along. We haven't been able to get any purchase on it. And you'd like to say, sure, let's go and fight it. I've been there. It hasn't worked. The court's not interested in having someone challenge its own plan. So you say, well, take it to the federal government. Well, the federal government, it's just created this umbrella you have to work with it. So you can't go there very easily. And besides that, the federal government looks at this as a state problem, not one of their problems. It's an internal state problem between the legislature, the courts, and the executive.
So having said that, tell me more about this concurrent House concurrent resolution, House concurrent order that you're paralleling along with what you're doing.
Okay, let's talk about that. Now, you're going to hear something which is somewhat contradictory.
We have. We heard it.
If you, just as a preface to that, we've been redistricting by bills for a long time. The House and Senate, the House redistricts itself, the Senate redistricts itself, then we create a bill, it goes to the governor stamps it and goes on. And for the last 8 years, before 2006 anyways, I take that back, no, that's wrong. Until Governor Gallup, we elected a Democrat in 1980, that was just a pro forma, right? Because the other Republican governor has been helping us from the Senate. So there was never any dispute. But Gallup, I think, vetoed a plan in 1980, and there was a big kerfuffle about it then. And then the next time redistricting came around, Governor Shaheen vetoed it. But that going to the governor had been just sort of in a way, a force of habit. If you actually look at the way that we used to redistrict, and I asked House Research to do this, and I've done quite a lot of looking at the way early government in New Hampshire was undertaken. What you discover is between 1784 and 1805, which is just an arbitrary range of years, the only time a redistricting plan ever went to the government was twice. All the other times, the 12 other times, the House and Senate just did it on their own. The reason for that is this. If you read the New Hampshire Constitution, which I think is the finest constitution in the world, and is spectacular, and it's egalitarian, it's fantastic. The founders gave all the power to the representatives in the House and the Senate. And the reason they did that was because the representatives came from their towns, right?
They gave the power to the people.
That's right. The towns sent their representative to the legislature. In concert, they got together and they determined what kind of rules would govern all the towns. It's a fantastic form of government. And it is towns. That's why, from the outset, I've been trying to make this happen. So anyway, so you discover that in those earlier periods, the House would often create districts as, on an interim basis. If a town got sufficient number of population in a particular period within a redistricting period, they got their rep. Sometimes you take 3 towns that were about qualified by a third. I think at the time when we started, it was like 100 polls, 100 voting property owners would qualify you for a rep. And then it went to 150. And anyway, the numbers moved around. But it was mathematical. Sometimes a town would share a couple months of the legislative period, couple months with other towns. The legislature was very aggressive and seeing that the property interests of these folks in our communities were represented. So when you look at those early redistricting efforts, the government was sometimes in, sometimes out. And I was looking at this just 2 weeks ago, when they amalgamated all the laws in 1991 in a compendium, the way that the editors looked at those were as legislative acts, independent legislative acts. What the Constitution provides for both the House and Senate is that the House is responsible for its own membership, the Senate is responsible for its own membership. Somebody said, well, why isn't the governor involved? And I said, I'm convinced that this is a simple reason, is that neither the judiciary nor the executive ought to have any right to determine the membership in the House or the Senate, because the House and Senate are the bodies that would impeach them. So you can't have you picking your own jury, right? Or affecting your own jury. You can't have it. I think that's why the Constitution that's why they didn't do it initially. I think after time, and maybe, you get familiar with the process, and you do it once, I'll do it again, nice guy. But that's the principal reason, to prevent. I could give you, if you want to close this meeting, I could go and talk about this for a while. I can think of, I'll give you just an example. And someone pointed this out to me, this is not my own idea. I was very aggressive in with respect to judicial reform in about 1997, 2002. And I filed a bill to impeach the Chief Justice because the Attorney General's discovery of misbehavior in office. when 2002 redistricting came, I represented the town of Enfield. After 2002 redistricting was done by the court, I was with 9 other towns in a district there's no way in the world I could get elected. Okay? Let's say that wasn't, I've always given the benefit of the doubt. But somebody pointed out to me, if you want to look at a way to take an activist out of the House, redistrict them out of the House, which is what happened to me in 2000. Let's say the court had done that deliberately. I'm not saying they did, but it could be an example of what could happen. So, if you look carefully, read it. It's a great document. You'll find power, very weak governor, very weak judiciary, all the horsepower is in the House of Representatives and the Senate as a check. And it's there because towns have been arrested. So I'm going to miss it.
Is it your guess, is your plan is to circumvent the governor?
No, coming back to House Concurrent Order 1. No, I think, let me just put it this way.
It has to be.
Let me put it this way. We're going to try to get this handled as a bill. Because it's been typically done that way. Someone said, well, if you do it, why don't you just do it? But the tradition is this whole process is complicated enough without elevating it to a whole other level of theatrics. If we're able to do this as a bill, we'll proceed that way. But let's say that the governor vetoes it, and if somehow the court gets the doggone thing all over again, or the consequence of the suit. I will tell you for myself, if the court decided they were going to redistrict the House, since I thought they were unconstitutional last time, I would absolutely promote the use of the House Concurrent Order. In 2000, I'll give you in 2002 when that happened, we looked for a way to implement House redistricting, and we found that a House Concurrent Order is a legitimate way of directing responsible agency, in this particular case, the Secretary of State, to act in the interest of the House and Senate. If you read the Constitution, you'll find that the Secretary of State, what's the word? Secretary of State serves the House and the Senate, the legislature, the general court. When the court decided to redistrict, the Secretary of State was incensed that the court should take the attempt to usurp the redistricting authority of the legislature. And I know, absolutely, that in 2002, had we been able to get a special session call, that we would have had a vote to order the Secretary of State to conduct redistricting as it was described in 2002. That effort was, here you go, politics, right? I won't tell you. At that time, you got sufficient number of petitions, members of the House to petition the Speaker to call a special session. We got all but, I want to say it was two formal, but it's only, we got all but one senator to agree to call a special session. The one senator, in my opinion, did not sign on because the plan that the court created benefited that senator's successor. I think the particular senator threw out all that redistricting effort to satisfy to get elected. That person's picked successful. So politics does play a part in this. Sometimes it's very, in that case, I think it's very narrow and wrong. But you have those kinds of things happen. So if what comes down to this, then the House Concurrent Order is there. We go back to the historical roots in the Constitution, and I can provide anybody who are researching with examples of these cases.
When was the last time that you used House Concurrent Order?
I don't know if it's ever been used for redistricting. But what would happen in the past, well, no. Here's the deal. In the past, the House and Senate just simply did it without the governor's signature. All right. That's what I just said earlier. In the early years of the state, there's clear evidence that the governor's signature is not required in order to redistrict. Clear evidence. But the House and Senate did it under their own steam. There was redistricting. There was not a fight with the governor or anything of that nature. It just went on that way. That's the way it went. And but today we have a lot of tension between the judicial branch, legislative branch, and sometimes with the executive branch, a lot of that tension comes out of and we don't want to get into this, but it's a whole series of changes in the relation that the judiciary has to the legislature beginning in the 50s and 60s with the constitutional amendments that basically got the judiciary out from underneath the oversight of the legislature. That's a topic for another night.
Representative Mercer.
Yes, sir.
What happens if we turn your proposal down in session day?
Well, if you defeat it, if we don't get a super majority, then we'll still pass. If we get less than a majority,
It's downstairs.
so I guess it's back to drawing.
Some of these have information.
But if we have a majority, then I guess the question is then what happens next? So the governor vetoes it. Then I suppose it would be a period of time to see if we could satisfy the governor's interest. And,
Two-thirds, right?
huh?
Override that, and you
Yeah, you need
three-fifths
two-thirds.
of the
That's what we need to do.
But there's no chance of him vetoing it because you have House concurrent order. Because it doesn't even go to him now.
No, the House concurrent order, that's like a belt and suspenders. We'd like to kind of just, we're willing to go along with the normal process, but we're not willing to let either the executive, I think, I'm saying I'm a proponent of the House concurrent order. I'm not willing to give the power to determine who your representative should be to either the executive or the judiciary. Because it was a disaster in 2002, complete disaster for the state. I don't think there's any way in the world that the people of this state would allow, in any way, shape, or form, the judiciary or redistricting the state. That it's been
So if this passes in the House, there's absolutely no chance of the governor vetoing it, because you've made that very clear in your House concurrent order.
Well, look, the governor can veto it, and he can send it back to the drawing board. I think from my point of view, the bigger danger is in having the court take the process over. And from my point of view, the concurrent order, as I think about it, is more to address what it really winds up in that circumstance is kind of a constitutional crisis, where we're back to 2002 and the towns and everybody else lose their opportunity to determine their own representatives. That's a big problem. So I think if the governor vetoes, I think what we do is you find something. The governor's going to provide a basis for vetoing. He has to say why the plan is unconstitutional, so long as we're within these parameters. He's going to find the problem. If he just does it to do it, then he creates a political event. And I don't know what happens in that circumstance. I know what kind of back and forth happens. We have a timeline we have to accommodate. We have to get our plan to the Senate, assuming we pass it out of the House. Then if the Senate agrees to it, and let's say the governor doesn't veto it, then the plan has to go to the Voting Rights Commission for review, and there's a 60-day time period there. And so if you back off from about the first or second week in June, when we all file for office, if you're going to run for the House, we'll be filing in June, early June, you back the time off and you wind up, you say, gee, we've got to be in pretty good shape to get this thing out of the state to the feds by earlier than the first week, middle of March, to be able to make the timeline. So there are timelines involved. If the opposition to the plan is successful in delaying things, then we could be back in a situation where suddenly nobody can file in June. You can't file in August. You miss the primaries. You could drive this whole thing into a tree in November. And so when you look at that, all of that kind of stuff, it would be irresponsible not to have another way of making this happen than to allow people with particular interest to create a train wreck in the legislature.
When is the next time you're voting on it?
Probably next Wednesday.
Great. Any more questions for Representative Mirsky?
My question is just, you've mentioned a web page several times.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Is that on the
I'm going to see if I can get you there. If you go to the state webpage, click on legislature. I think what you're going to come up with is a page that will allow you to click on committees. You look for the special House Committee on Redistricting. right?
Or you could go to election law, election committee, and then they'll say the committee, subcommittee.
Yeah, you probably
say
do.
district. That's how I got it.
Okay, so the Tilton, listen to it. As you go to House Special Committee Redistricting, you click on there, and then you'll see a link that says Documents. You click there, and anybody who's upset about the federal stuff, all the federal stuff is on this page. Click on there, Documents, and you can work your way through the documents. You can see plans, you can see all kinds of plans that are presented. There's a lot of input into this thing. There are some people who like to tell you it's a closed door, all kinds of maps. Since last spring, people have been producing maps. There's been a flurry of it since November, just people producing all kinds of different options. And what we boiled down to our first presentation, boiling it down to what we thought we could make. And now, of course, the people keep poking at it. They find, well, maybe we could separate wards in Concord and give them individual rec, and then create materials. There's little things here and there we're trying to fix. We're still trying to fix the Hudson-Litchfield problem, which started in 2002 is still with us today. We'd like to fix Meredith, for example, if we could figure out a way to do it, Meredith Guilford. But these are still monumentally difficult fixes. They're very complicated. But if we can make it better, we're going to make it better. So you guys are in a bad situation because we have to say, you have to be with another town, at least in a flotilla, if nothing else. And when you look to expand, suddenly Sanborn's right there without any representation. So it's like these two things coming together, and we just can't get away. You had a question.
Yeah, what normally happens out in the press when you get into politics and you're talking at the local diner is that there are politics involved and gerrymandering and things like that come into play. Do you feel honestly that none of that came into play with the efforts that you put in? I appreciate you coming, by the way.
I'm as partisan as there is anybody in the House.
Yeah.
Because I think my partisan philosophy happens to be the right one, right?
Right.
And I have the opposite of the Democrat Party. The folks over there, if I look at our votes, I'm way over here and they're way over there, right? I can't create, this is hysterical. It's not hysterical, it's kind of interesting. The three people who are the Republicans on the House subcommittee on the redistricting is myself, Gene Chandler, and David Bates. Look at Gene Chandler's district. He's way at the northern end of Carroll County, in essentially a Democrat district. If you could gerrymander, you figure out a way to get Gene away back into the city. He was a former speaker. Look at Speaker O'Brien's seat, the Speaker of the House. He's in Little Mount Vernon. The only town we can put him in is New Boston, which is twice as big as Montford. So you can't be guaranteed of being reelected in that situation. You can't be guaranteed of being reelected.
Yeah.
Right? If there was gerrymandering, we'd find a way to get the speaker in with a bunch of towns where you have a chance of developing an ability to be reelected. Just that's the speaker. My own town, if you look at the voting tendencies, I'm going to have a hard time getting reelected in Enfield because of the Democrat. Now, the one thing I can say is Enfield's been able to be restored as a single district just because in our situation, the town to the west, Lebanon, is nearly perfect for 4 reps. So you come east and suddenly you look at the way the population works in the rest of the county, and Enfield can be its own, but it's not any good, not good for me. And David Bates, the other third member, is out of Windham. Right now, there are 7 representatives serving the House from Windham. It only deserves 4. So David's going to get, if all 7 run, he's going to have 3 primary opponents. Now, if you can gerrymander, what you do is you put Salem and Windham together. Right? So Windham, who controls the district right now, those guys are all going to be elected. What drives this is math. It is the most, on one hand, it is the most maddening thing, this 10% box. On the other hand, what it does is it really prevents manipulation. Now, I would be, if I have a choice, you always have some subjective choices you can make. Well, politically, you will always try to make a choice that you think will benefit you, if you can do it. But that's true of the other side. But this process does not allow a lot of that, if any. And it's very, very, very few opportunities where you say, well, if I do this, this is more apt to happen than that. The numbers, the folks working the numbers will tell you that. I'll tell you a good reason. There's a fellow on our committee, and he's always been talking about this. His name is Spec Bowers. He's a rep from over in George's Mills. And he's a kind of a puzzle master. And he just became the fastest infatuated with this. First he said, I like Sudoku. Well, that brings up the way this works. I just want to leave you one thought. This process has been described in three ways. First, it was described as a Rubik's Cube. Right? Complicated. But it's not a Rubik's Cube because there is no single solution. The object with a Rubik's Cube, you get all sides the same, the respective color. It's not a Rubik's Cube. There's no single solution. Someone said, well, it's like a balloon, where you have this balloon, you push over here, and something happens over here. And that's true. We're trying to solve Hudson-Litchfield, and the effect comes over, that's backing up. But it's really not a balloon, because the balloon still remains whole. What happens in this process is really kind of like a house of cards. Carefully build all these small districts. You get up near the top, I can move this card, I can take this card away, but if I touch any card down here, the whole thing collapses. And that's what happens. So if you decide you want to go on your own adventure, go to the site, get a whole new tool, try it. I guarantee you, if you're a puzzle person, you love doing this, but you'll also discover how difficult it is. We've got three fantastic people in the house doing this, and none of them have been able to solve the Meredith Gilbert problem. That's all I'm going to say on that right now. There is a possibility, but it's just an unusual application of another idea that you might be able to use there. But even that's going to be interesting. So that's what I don't know. That's as good as I can explain what's happening.
I like your idea of creating wards in situations like that, passing legislation to create wards that would help people do that in our situation by having some voters in Tilton. For the purposes of the state rep joining Cameron and get a state rep over here and a state rep over here.
Wards do work better in bigger communities. They could.
I'm talking smaller.
The smaller communities, what could happen is you could have a situation, because remember, the feds don't care about political boundaries. They care about wards in town, or the state council cares about wards in town. It's to see if we could have a ward stolen by Salmon to create a district. And then you wind up with half your town in another district or another town. So you gotta be careful about that.
No, it would only work if you could have your own guy.
It works when you have multiples of 32 nights. You've got wards in Manchester with, 9,000 reps. Wards in Manchester, 2 reps or 3 reps, whatever. But doing multiples of a rep, that will really help. When you try to combine towns and locales, it works better when they're either close to the same population. Typically, it throws everything out.
Have a spec work on that.
You know Spec?
I don't, but you know.
Oh, I'm telling you, he's all broken his brain on this. I just said, in order for people to come today, we're trying to solve Meredith's problem, and Gilbert's problem. And we're just searching. One of the things that, in searching for solutions, you can find some sometimes, or find an evidence. But if there's any arbitrariness, it's not a result of a logical, either mathematical or logical progression, you can't use it.
Federal-wide, statewide.
Yeah. And some of the ideas people have had, about sharing reps and subdividing towns, all that kind of stuff, the proposal so far has been arbitrary. So we've not been able to use it. You have to put a solution in the context where, right, I can find you, I can find Paul. And that's kind of like that. So that's uniform. Sorry to talk so long.
I thank you for coming and explaining to us. Alida, Representative from Meredith, I appreciate it.
Like I say,
Bill, thank you. Dennis.
The House policy would probably be that we couldn't send a subcommittee, we couldn't send a whole subcommittee up every time we was unhappy, right? So I came here, as I said, at the request of your rep, Dennis Fields, and he's been very aggressive in making sure that you got heard, so you should know that. Good guy.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Elida. I appreciate you coming.
Thank you very much for...
Representative Greenmore, I appreciate that.
Happy now when came in the door.
Thank you.
I was going to pick that up for you, but I didn't know.
I don't have a poll, I have a...
Tilton has to field one first.
Okay. All right. Just have a 2-minute break.
Sure.
Pardon me?
2-minute break, get a cup of coffee.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
It's always good to see you, Karen.
Always nice.
Catherine, take care. No.
We're red.
We're red.
God, I'm going to spill that. I know it.
Not even close. Welcome to our...
Okay, we are. Reports from Selectmen. Joe, you got anything for us?
The only thing that I really have other than questions, well, I have two things. I called the guy again about the equipment list. Oh, the holidays have been busy, but I'm going to get right on it. That's just for your information about the range kitchen equipment. The one thing I've got from my purview is that on 1/17 at the LGC at 2 p.m. there's going to be a meeting of the Concord Regional Solid Waste Cooperative pertaining to the withdrawal of Allenstown and what kind of financial settlement is being proposed by the people in Allenstown. I'm going to get the information and I'll bring it back. So the 17th, I believe, is a Tuesday. So on the 19th, I would have the information for you so that you guys can, we can discuss it and decide how Tilton is going to vote on that. That's the only real thing. Because of the holidays, everything's been pretty quiet. Yay!
That can be a good thing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Okay, great. Moving right along.
I just have one thing. Joyce had asked me to bring it up. The municipal work zone agreement for the project on 140. They want to know where, we haven't signed it, where it is. Joyce explained to them.
It's the same place the attraction signage is. On the revolving desk.
Oh, and asked her if we could send him a letter and comment on it. So my suggestion is that we do just that. And maybe we could offer a mediation. It says here, whereas the department intends to use a combination of flaggers and/or uniformed officers. Maybe if we could ask him to rewrite it to say, whereas the department intends to use a combination of flaggers and uniform officers, and leave out as appropriate to control traffic and ensure public and work safety.
That's really ambiguous, though. That means nothing, does it?
No, it means that they have to have at least a uniformed officer there.
Right.
Because right now it says combination of flaggers and/or uniformed officers as appropriate. So as they deem it's appropriate, they might have an officer there.
And we want to say it is appropriate.
That they have to have at least one officer there, whether they have flaggers or not. I mean, with the officer, we have to remember, comes the cruiser with the blue lights. And when people come into that type of a work zone, they see that, they slow down.
Right. I agree with you.
So that would be
I'm
my
all for it.
suggestion.
We have an ordinance that says that there's supposed to be a uniformed officer on site.
Right, but the
State is
state
not
claims that they
subject to
are,
our ordinances.
yes. Well, they're
They're
claiming,
working in our town.
they're claiming that there's an RSA that supports their authority that says the department will be responsible for the management and operation of the highway throughout the duration of the construction of this project. This includes the authority to determine the most appropriate way to control traffic within the construction zone limits of the project. So those are the two things we'd have to ask them to adjust.
I'm for that.
Okay.
Hallelujah.
I'll let Joyce know when she gets back. That's all I have.
That's all you have?
Yep.
Well,
I'll have a lot next week. Right now, it's all work in progress.
I wanted to
Hit the back button.
hit the back button. All photos. No, I really don't want to look at James. Older. Oh, I got it. So, what I wanted to do while I was talking about this is to show Norm, and as this goes through,
Seen this.
the Grange pictures. We have a donation from AutoServe, and hopefully we will get a match donation to help out with pots and pans and utensils. As right now, we have a donation of glassware, stemware, actually, really nice, glasses, goblets and things, really nice. And we need dishes, pots and pans, utensils. And a few people I've mentioned to them, all have said, you know what, I'm going to go back in my house and see what I've got, duplicates and so on, whisks, and that will get us by until we can firm up the donations that are starting to come in. But if people wanted to just make a donation, that's good too. One of the ladies at voting when we were there, one of our senior citizens gave me a donation towards the dishes. Yep, any of the donations count. So
I have a big pot for a top, it's about this tall, about like that. It's brand new, I've never used it.
perfect. We'll take it. So anyway, that's where the Grange is. Catherine, you weren't here. Oh, you want to see this? You can see it.
Downstairs,
Okay. Yeah.
the state website has the list of equipment. We'll call it Deb Courier, ask to speak to Deb Courier, and she'll email it to you right away.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, don't try to go through the guys, go right to her, she's the...
I have a question about the stove.
Did you see the sandblast? Plates?
As of yesterday, they were sitting in
There's two.
Al's office.
Sandblasted. There's two. Sandblasted. Did you see them?
They're gray now?
Yeah, that's all sandblasted.
Oh, is that what that's about?
Right.
Okay, so we can just repaint them with the stove paint.
Well, Arthur offered to spray paint them.
Oh, that's nice.
We'll have them use the
high heat.
regular high heat stove paint.
But he wants to wait until they're all there so that he can just set it up so that they're all done.
Well, the 3 that I did are done. They don't really, unless they
Those are the ones that got,
sandblasted them all.
no, that's the ones that we did over.
I know
The 3 that you did.
A couple, oh. Well,
That's the ones that are now sandblasted, Joe.
I know they were trying to help out, but,
I was trying to help out.
well, whoever it was.
Yeah,
You wanted them shiny, but that has to be baked on it to process.
right.
Right.
You know, there's no shiny paint that will work for that out of a can, unfortunately, that I know of.
So, that's pretty much it. We're looking for an opening. I'd like to have 2 boards at town meeting, and, did you want to mention town meeting too? Yeah.
Sure.
2 boards at town meeting, one with then pictures, 8 by 10
yeah.
pictures, and one with now pictures. This
Somebody should
is what
say
the
something
kitchen,
about
here's
the
this,
green.
just pictures as you go in. And this is really where your money went to this. And I have 8 by 10s ordered for the
money
pictures.
pit.
I wasn't going to say that.
I'm glad Mr. Gallant isn't here to hear me say that.
Anyway, Judy has offered to donate pastries and whatever, and have them served, if we charge a nominal fee, and have it donated to the senior center during the town meeting.
Oh, nice.
Coffee, tea, water, bagels, selection, pastries.
And the proceeds would go to the senior center, so that help keep the doors open.
Thank you very much, Ms.
Thank you.
Tilton.
It's very nice.
You'll be lacing those with Thorazine, I hope?
Nobody was walking along the front.
What?
Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
Oh, no.
Bye.
What happened to her?
You don't want to hear it.
Sunday's totaled Peter Fogg's car.
Uh-oh.
Our Peter Fogg?
I hope he's all right.
She was married to him.
Really?
All right,
Well, that
moving...
makes sense on several levels.
Moving right along, just so you know that Catherine, the toilet at the PD was, the one that was ordered was the Taj Mahal. So the one that's reordered and given to the
jailhouse
contractor
hopper.
is the lower end, so
For
to
the
speak.
lower ends, right?
Lower. For the lower
Well, you
ends.
went from Taj Mahal to Jailhouse Hopper. What do you want?
About $200.
No, not even close. This is much nicer than your toilet, my toilet put together.
Let me see.
These are commercial toilets.
You could put out an eye on that handle, though, see?
And porcelain,
You know
when
what?
you could break it.
You could smack your head against the floor until it cracks
Well,
open.
that's why we're carpeting
I
it.
mean,
Talk about being a...
No, but these still have water, and the whole thing
Were you
is,
standing out there?
Another big thing,
I saw that.
We watched it fall, and I said, I hope nobody was standing out there.
did you hear what happened to her?
I heard
Did you hear what happened to her? No. She was at the landing, coming in the door,
This building's
and a
got a
whole
thing
big,
for you.
huge thing of snow fell off the roof and landed right on her.
Okay.
Yeah.
The problem with this is that
Well, they
you
have
have
others that
a
don't have water.
4-point liter of LPF of water, and may be specified with a flusher meter, solar power flusher meter. Okay, anyway. Oh, gallons per flush, 1.28. I get it. So that would be the difference between that. You'd need to have, but that is a healthy alternative, chief. Very healthy alternative, the Sloan wall mount,
Why would you...
$299. $299.99. Healthy alternative.
Would you like me to give that to the chief?
Okay. I guess that's all I have.
There you go, sure.
All I really have is we had our first public hearing on zoning changes, planning board meeting, and all went well. We'll have another one on the 24th for issues brought up and discussed with the public. And other than that, I'll save the rest because I'm in midstream on a couple of things, so when we get done, I'll bring them up.
Do you have anything for us, Chief?
No, just right in the middle of doing press releases. We started making arrests today on the robbery.
On the case? Okay.
One of them was being booked tonight.
Good, good, good. Excellent.
On the first
On the first arrest for the case? Okay, good.
Going out here in about 10 minutes.
Great. Yes. Great job, detectives.
Well, yes,
Excellent.
absolutely.
Excellent job. Okay, is there any more from the public? Having no more from the public and no old business.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, get out of town. I mean, second.
Didn't I hear we're going to have a small non-public?
Are we?
Oh, yeah, we do. Just a small 2 second. I mean, this is 2 second.
God damn it, Catherine.
Literally 2 second.
I couldn't even tell you what it was about.
I do.
The words.
Yeah.
Okay, I withdraw my second.
Honest to God, it's like 2 seconds, Jane.
Motion.
Jane, go stand under that corner, it hasn't fallen yet.
I'm not going to stand anywhere.
All right, I will make a motion to enter into non-public session as per RSA 91A:3, personnel.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public meeting as they pertain to personnel issues permanently.
Second.
Second.
Yes.
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 I would also like to make a little motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Second.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Yes.
We're adjourned.
That's all.